Chapter 1258. Hearing this, Su Xiaoshui instantly flew away and landed on Feng Qi-er's shoulder. Su Yi looked at the middle-aged man in front of him as his eyes flickered. He had just broken through to the 9th level of the Origin Void stage not long ago. Facing such an Origin monarch, although there was a difference of a large realm, he felt that it shouldn't be difficult for him to deal with it. Just as he was thinking, layers of billowing Origin energy gushed out from Su Yi's body and spread out in the air, causing a fierce vibration. An Origin Void stage, kid, isn't weak. When this sect master captures you, I'll definitely interrogate you properly. Feeling Su Yi's strength, Feng Yiming was extremely surprised. He didn't expect that the youth before him was actually a powerful Origin Void stage. If it was before, he would still have to be apprehensive. But now that he was an Origin Monarch stage powerhouse, he didn't have the slightest bit of fear. Feng Yiming's expression couldn't help but darken when he was suddenly interrupted. He didn't want to ask the reason why this youth appeared here. As long as he captured him, he would have plenty of time to slowly interrogate him. With this thought in mind, a ferocious fire attribute Yuan Qi rushed out from his body, instantly transforming into a huge fire dragon, twisting its body in the air. Chi-Chi, the broken wood of the house on the ground, burned fiercely. Raging flames surged, burning everything in the sky. The fire dragon raised its head and roared, suddenly pouncing. Just a first-level Origin Monarch. Destroying you is as easy as pie. When such words came out from Su Yi's mouth, his gaze became extremely cold in an instant. Looking at the fire dragon approaching, he stood on the spot without moving, allowing the scorching air wave to slap on his body. At the same time, the art of controlling heaven in his body circulated rapidly. Buzz, 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 a tyrannical soul force surging out like a tide. The soul force was invisible and omnipresent. It instantly rushed into Feng Yiming's mind, causing his body to suddenly tremble and throb endlessly. Soul controller. In an instant, Feng Yiming realized that the youth standing in front of him was a powerful soul controller. Under his gaze, the young man's fingers danced as he formed one profound seal after another. What followed was the sound of countless remnant souls wailing in the surroundings. Woo-woo! A large number of remnant souls were attracted, and the phantoms of 100 ghosts walked under the bright light of the universe. Soon, they gathered around Su Yi. In a short moment, these remnant souls condensed, the power of fire surged, and also transformed into a huge fire dragon. Under Feng Yiming's shocked gaze, it fiercely charged towards the fire dragon that he had shot out. Roar. Most P. New Chapter 5 section *E above K. The two fire dragons roared and roared. They were incomparably powerful and stirred up space. Everywhere they passed, the air seemed to be ignited. Boom! After a while, the two of them collided violently, creating an earth-shattering rumble that shook the heavens and the earth. Scorching heat waves spread out, and a circle of terrifying flame ripples rapidly expanded. Su Yi didn't retreat. Instead, he stomped on the ground and charged towards the ripples. At the same time, he ceaselessly formed complicated hand seals in his hand, and another Earth Barbarian ape phantom was condensed. Roar, roar. The Earth Barbarian ape condensed from the power of the earth was like a small mountain. It pounded its chest with its fists, producing an earth-shaking drum sound. It tore through the layers of flames and brazenly pounced forward. Feng Yiming retreated a few steps. He was still a little stunned, and was surprised by the strength of the youth in front of him. Only when the Earth Barbarian ape rushed in front of him did he make a move to deal with it. What a powerful soul controller! Feng Yiming muttered. The fire attribute Origin Qi on his body surged violently. His naked upper body was burned red by the flames, looking as if it was made of molten iron, emitting an extremely strong sense of power. The bright flames wrapped around Feng Yiming, burning fiercely on the surface of his body, causing his body to grow several feet taller, turning into a flame giant. Kill! Feng Yiming bellowed, took a step forward and fought with the Earth Barbarian ape. The battle situation here attracted the attention of many people from the Blood Dragon sect, but no one dared to approach. Many people watched from afar, their hearts trembling. As for Su Xiaoshui and Feng Qi, they were also quietly watching. Su Yi's ability to control remnant souls is really strong. Feng Qi's eyes sparkled. Unlike others, she was also a soul controller and could clearly see that the remnant souls in the sky were being controlled by Su Yi at will. The remnant souls of the 4 attributes of earth, fire, water, and wind were all attracted by him. At the same time, a powerful soul force spread out in the void, causing Feng Qi to feel palpitations. Of course, otherwise how can he be my boss? Su Xiaoshui, on the other hand, had a matter-of-fact look. In his understanding, Su Yi was his boss and was definitely far stronger than ordinary people. I wonder if he can defeat that person. Feng Qi was still muttering to herself. Don't worry, he's only at the first level of the Origin Emperor realm. If boss really wants to kill him, it'll only take a flip of his hand. Su Xiaoshui said softly, watching the battlefield while also observing the surrounding movements. He wanted to find other experts who might appear, and his purpose here was to find those people from the Jade Tripod Alchemy clan. Under his and Feng Qi's gazes, the battlefield was abnormally intense. The palm of the Earth Barbarian ape was like a solid stone wall, shaking the sky from top to bottom and ruthlessly slapping towards Feng Yiming. Feng Yiming raised both his hands high above his head, and the power of the fire attribute shot out, brazenly meeting the palm of the Earth Barbarian ape. The moment the two came into contact, the power of the 2 attributes surged wildly, and a sharp howl filled the air. The palm of the Earth Barbarian ape was like 100,000 mountains collapsing. It carried an extremely strong power, and with an absolutely tyrannical posture, it instantly slapped Feng Yiming until his arm bent, and a crisp creaking sound could be heard from his spine. Roar! As the palm fell, the other palm of the Earth Barbarian ape's shadow followed closely, suddenly attacking Feng Yiming's side. Bang! Feng Yiming was sent flying, spitting out blood as he smashed onto the ground. Is this the strength of the Origin Emperor realm? If that's the case, then let's end it. Su Yi's gaze was dark as he said softly. His soul force surged, and the Earth Barbarian ape's feet suddenly stomped on the ground, directly stepping into the air and instantly landing in front of Feng Yiming. Roar! A terrifying roar rang out as it raised its leg and ruthlessly stomped on Feng Yiming's chest. Feng Yiming originally wanted to resist again, but the strength of the Earth Barbarian ape was simply too great. The power of its foot was truly as terrifying as the pressure of Mount Tai, breaking both of his arms like dry firewood. A terrifying depression had appeared on his chest. An Origin Emperor realm expert was quickly suppressed. Brat, who exactly are you? Feng Yiming lay on the ground, his face the color of a pig's liver due to the pain. At this time, he was truly terrified to the extreme. To think that he, a dignified Origin Emperor realm expert, would actually lose so quickly at the hands of an Origin Void Stage expert. This was hard to accept. Chapter 1259. The people of the Jade Tripod Alchemy clan still haven't appeared. After defeating Feng Yiming, Su Yi did not go forward to check the situation. Instead, he looked around. The strange thing was that the few experts who had escaped from the Jade Tripod Alchemy clan had yet to appear. Logically speaking, with such a big commotion, they should at least appear. Could it be that the information Shui Qianqiu received was wrong? Looks like I have to interrogate him again. Su Yi did not think too much about it. With a wave of his hand, the Earth Barbarian ape phantom dissipated. He released a few restrictions that landed on Feng Yiming's body. Boss! At this moment, Su Xiaoshui flew over and landed on Su Yi's shoulder. Feng Qi, and Man Bao also stepped forward. Let's go! Su Yi called out, picked up the miserable Feng Yiming, and stood on Man Bao's back with a man and a bird, quickly leaving. Sect Master. In the surroundings, Many members of the Blood Dragon sect were shocked when they saw their sect master being taken away. However, no one dared to step forward to stop them. After all, even their sect master was not a match for that young man. If they stepped forward, it would be tantamount to courting death. Watching Su, Yi, and the others leave, the Blood Dragon sect instantly fell into chaos. All the sect members were like ants on a hot pan. Su Yi would not care about these things. He brought Feng Yiming and quickly rushed into the forest. He found a remote place and threw him down. The robe tied around Feng Yiming's waist was torn at this moment. He rolled on the ground, revealing some hidden parts. Why are these people so detestable? Feng Qi turned her head and frowned, her face full of disgust. Seeing this, Su Yi used his foot to lift Feng Yiming's robe, covering the hidden part. Little, who are you? What enmity do you have with my Blood Dragon sect? Feng Yiming's expression was trembling. Intense pain assaulted his nerves, but he still gritted his teeth and asked Su Yi. It was only now that he thought of asking this question. Previously, Su Yi had interrupted his plans, causing him to fly into a rage. He wanted to kill this young man, but he didn't expect that he would fail miserably and become a prisoner. I don't want to talk too much nonsense. Tell me, where are those people from the Jade Tripod Alchemy clan? I can consider sparing your life. Su Yi stood beside Feng Yiming and did not answer his question. Instead, he lowered his head and asked, Jade Tripod Alchemy sect? Feng Yi was clearly stunned. Then, his gaze evaded as he said, I don't know anyone from the Jade Tripod Alchemy clan. I'm afraid you found the wrong person. You still dare to be dishonest. Su Xiaoshui immediately frowned and was about to spit out flames towards Feng Yiming, but was pulled back by Su Yi. But just at this moment, Feng Yiming felt some of the power coming from little handsome Su's body, and his expression became even more cold. Only now did he notice the little bird, but he didn't expect it to carry such a terrifying pressure. It doesn't matter if you don't tell me the truth. I have plenty of ways to make you talk. Su Yi waved his hand and said to Feng Qi, Feng Qi, do you have any means to make him talk? Feng glanced at Feng Yiming and thought for a moment before saying, I'll try. As she spoke, she slowly walked to Feng Yiming's side, her face full of disgust. A slender hand slowly stretched out, and wisps of black aura spread out from this jade-white palm. Like poisonous snakes spitting out their tongues, they slowly drilled into Feng Yiming's body. Feng Yiming immediately screamed miserably. Waves of black aura swam around his body, and his veins bulged. The terrifying pain caused his face to deform. Under the effect of the poisonous gas, Feng Yiming kept rolling on the ground. Mud and grass stained his body, and his robes scattered again. Feng Qi frowned and turned around, no longer looking. The miserable screams pierced through the clouds and cracked rocks, drifting through the forest and startling countless birds. Su Yi was not in a hurry. He just quietly watched Feng Yiming wail. I'll give you one more chance. Are you going to tell me or not? After a long while, he finally opened his mouth and asked softly. It was a fact that a few Origin Emperors had escaped from the Jade Tripod Alchemy sect, and Feng Yiming had suddenly broken through to the Origin Emperor realm not long ago. There must be a connection between them. Speak. I'll speak. Feng Yiming screamed, hugging his head and howling in pain. It had to be said that the power of Feng Qi's calamity Qi poison soul was too terrifying. Even an Origin Emperor realm cultivator would find it difficult to withstand it when his strength was restricted. This kind of poison was not only effective on the body, but also on the soul. All right, Su Yi nodded, indicating for Feng Qi to expel the poison. Feng Qi did not even turn around. She only pinched her fingers a few times, and wisps of black aura emerged from Feng Yiming's body and finally dissipated. I'll speak. Feng Yiming took a few deep breaths and said, Consecrator Kai found a place in the mountains not far away. He wants to open up that place as his future sect. He's there right now. Consecrator Kai? Su Yi raised his eyebrows. This Consecrator Kai was probably a certain Origin Emperor realm elder of the Jade Tripod Alchemy sect. It seemed that the other party had also become a consecrator of the Blood Dragon sect. It seemed that he wanted to establish a new sect. He could understand this. In the Chaos region, establishing a faction and becoming an itinerant cultivator were two completely different situations. There were also many benefits to becoming a consecrator of the Blood Dragon sect. At the very least, this sect would be completely under their control. Moreover, they would not need to deal with many troublesome matters and would rarely appear. They would not be easily discovered by the Bawang sect. It could be said that the people of the Jade Tripod Alchemy sect had a good plan. What about the others? He asked again. There was more than one elder who had escaped from the Jade Tripod Alchemy sect, but he did not know the exact number. There's also Consecrated Chi and Consecrated Chao. The two of them left the Red Dragon Ridge a few days ago. They said that they were going to investigate some secret realm. Feng Yiming said again. Investigate the secret realm? He understood that this secret realm was very likely the one that the 9 great forces had discovered. Those people had also received the news. Other than the 3 of them, is there anyone else? He asked again. No more. Feng Yiming shook his head and looked at Yi, his eyes filled with fear. Looks like it's just these 3 people. He nodded. He reckoned that Feng Yiming would not dare to lie at this moment. 3 Origin Emperor Realm experts had escaped from the Jade Tripod Alchemy sect, but they were not in the same place. He did not know who had the resources of the Jade Tripod Alchemy sect, or if all 3 of them had them. Take me to your consecrated Kai. Otherwise, I will make you die a horrible death. Yi's gaze flashed like lightning as he stared at Feng Yiming. Feng Yiming did not dare to refuse. He had tasted the terror of the poisonous gas just now. Chapter 1260. The place where Consecrator Kai was located wasn't particularly far, but it wasn't close either. With man bow speed, it took him nearly 4 hours to reach a mountain range. This mountain range was very remote, and very few people went there. However, the spiritual energy was considered abundant and was slightly better than the Red Dragon Ridge. Boss, I can already sense the fluctuations of the Origin Emperor realm. It should be where that old fellow is. As soon as he arrived, Su Xiaoshui whispered into Yi's ear. Very good. Yi nodded. Su Xiaoshui's soul force was much stronger than his. After all, his cultivation was there, and he had the Phoenix bloodline. He threw Feng Yiming onto the ground and was about to look for Elder Kai, but he didn't expect Feng Yiming to speak again. You said you wouldn't kill me. Let me go. Feng Yiming was terrified as he begged. You reminded me. Yi smiled lightly and shot out a finger light that suddenly struck Feng Yiming's lower abdomen. With a pu sound, accompanied by a strong surge of essence qi, the energy in Feng Yiming's body evaporated like water vapor and gradually dissipated. He screamed again. He knew that his sea of qi had been crippled and his Origin Emperor realm cultivation was gone. His heart was filled with panic. He had clearly hidden the benefits given by the experts of the Jade Tripod Alchemy clan and had just broken through to the Origin Emperor realm. He didn't expect that he would cause such a huge disaster because of this. If he lost his cultivation in the Chaos domain, the only path left for him was death. I said I wouldn't kill you, but I didn't say I wouldn't cripple you. Yi glanced at Feng Yiming indifferently and didn't stay any longer. He immediately rode on Man Bao, brought Feng Qi and Su Xiaoshui, and quickly rushed into the mountain range. Su Xiaoshui followed the situation with his soul force and found out that Elder Kai was cultivating in a cave not far away. The few of them walked through the mountain range. Not long after, they landed in front of a mountain peak. Boss, that old thing shouldn't be weak. Leave it to me to deal with him, Su Xiaoshui said. Seeing Yi nod, his entire body instantly surged with spirit energy, spreading out like a wave in the air. Whoosh! Soon, a figure shot out from the cave. Who are you? Why did you come to this old man's place of seclusion? The person couldn't help but ask when he saw Yi and Feng Qi. This was an old man in his 60s. His hair and beard were pitch black, and he seemed to be in high spirits. When he sensed handsome Su's aura, he couldn't help but tremble. That little bird was too familiar to him. Wasn't it the phoenix that accompanied the sect leader of the Bawang sect, Su-yi? As expected, just as the old man felt that something was wrong, he heard the young man opposite him speak. "Old man, you should know me, right?" The young man's face wriggled and slowly changed into the appearance of a 17 or 18-year-old boy. Sui. The old man's face was filled with boundless fear. He kept pointing at the young man with his trembling finger. How could he not recognize this young man? He was none other than the young sect leader of the Bawang sect, Su-yi. Run. The old man didn't need to think at all. He instantly turned around, his primordial chi circulating wildly, and used his movement skill to shoot into the distance. He knew very well that Su-yi had found this place. If he didn't run now, only death would await him. Seeing the old man like this, Su-yi was very sure that this person must be Elder Kai. "Old man, do you think you can run away?" Handsome Su curled his lips in disdain. He flapped his wings, and his body streaked across the sky like lightning. In just a breath's time, before the old man could run more than 100 feet, Handsome Su intercepted him in front of him. At the same time, Handsome Su lifted one of his wings and suddenly flapped it out. Whoosh! A terrifying gust of wind swept across like a frightening guillotine and suddenly slammed into the old man's body. Puff! The old man activated his primordial chi to form a strong defense, but it was still destroyed by the wind blade. It disintegrated instantly, and blood spurted out. With a great force, the old man's body flew backward like a kite with a broken string. He flew in the direction of Su-yi and Feng Qi. He was at the 6th level of the Origin Royal Realm, but in front of Handsome Su, he was still vulnerable. In a moment, the old man's face changed, and a sharp and cold aura climbed up his face. His eyes were like knives. Using the force of flying backward, he forcefully turned his body and pounced on Su-yi. "Young man, give me your life," the old man said coldly. Since he was no match for the phoenix, he would capture Su-yi. No matter how strong this young man was, he was only at the Origin Void Realm. It would be easy to take him down. As he spoke, he raised his hand and shot out a ray of light. It was like an iron chain that swept across the sky and rolled towards Su-yi. As long as he took down this young man, he would be able to keep his life today. "Old man, you think you can fight my boss?" However, at this moment, Handsome Su's voice sounded again. With a whoosh, a blazing aura swept out from behind him. The bright light of the fire illuminated the void, turning it crimson. Then, the flames spread and instantly burned the old man's back. Ah! A scream pierced into the sky and pierced through the diaphragm. The old man was attacked by the flames, and the chi in his body instantly became chaotic. The ribbon in his hand could no longer maintain its form. Just as it was about to descend in front of Su-yi, it directly collapsed. His body rolled in the void, and he howled in pain. The smell of burnt flesh spread out. It was the smell of flesh and blood, and it was very strong. "Little Handsome, take it easy. Don't burn him to death." Seeing this situation, Su-yi, who was standing in the same place, did not move. However, he shouted anxiously, "What a joke." It was not easy to find this old man, and the whereabouts of the Jade Tripod Alchemy Sect's treasures had not been found. If Handsome Su was not careful and burned him to ashes, the loss would be great. "Boss, don't worry. I know what I'm doing," Handsome Su said. Then, the flames that filled the sky disappeared, and the surging hot air also dissipated. In the end, Handsome Su's claws fell and grabbed the old man's back, bringing him in front of Su-yi. A restriction was cast, imprisoning all the power in the old man's body. Su-yi immediately laughed when he saw this. He looked at the old man, as if he was looking at a big treasure. He did not know how many benefits he had. He asked Handsome Su to throw the old man on the ground. Then, he searched his body and quickly found a space bag. It seems that it will take some effort to open this thing. Looking at the space bag in his hand, Su-yi muttered. Since he had already obtained the item, he was not in a hurry. Instead, he began to interrogate the old man. As a 6th-level Origin Emperor Realm expert, Elder Kai was very tough. After being captured by Su-yi, he actually changed his weak state. No matter what question Su-yi asked, he would not speak. Chapter 1261. Once again, he asked Feng Qi to make a move and use the power of the Calamity Aura to force Elder Kai to attack. However, an existence at the 6th level of the Origin Emperor realm was not something that a coward like Feng Yiming could compare to. Even though he was enduring endless pain, Elder Kai still gritted his teeth and did not speak. After all, Feng Qi-er's cultivation was still weak, so she could not do anything to this old man for the time being. Your bones are quite tough. Let me do it. Su Xiaoshui snorted coldly and began to spit out flames, starting from the soles of Elder Kai's feet. This was the true fire of the phoenix. It was different from ordinary flames. It could burn all the way through one's flesh and meridians and into the depths of one's soul. To Elder Kai, this was even more painful than being tortured. As expected, he did not persist for long before he revealed Su-yi's questions one by one. From his mouth, Su-yi and the others knew that there were indeed a total of 3 Origin Emperors who survived the Jade Tripod Alchemy sect. The place where the other 2 went was indeed where the legendary Mystic Realm was. However, after the Jade Tripod Alchemy sect was destroyed, they hid everywhere, afraid that they would be found by the Bawang sect, so they would not appear openly. Their goal of hiding in the Crimson Dragon Ridge was just as Su-yi had guessed. They wanted to support a puppet force and wait for it to grow stronger so that they could gradually establish a foothold in the Chaos region in the future. Of course, they were afraid of the Bawang sect. Therefore, they planned to wait until the Blood Dragon sect developed and find a better place to stay. Or, they could bring the Blood Dragon sect to join one of the 3 first-rate forces. So these 3 old fellows don't trust each other that much. They actually each took away the treasures of the Jade Tripod Alchemy sect. According to the results of Su-yi's interrogation, the benefits of the Jade Tripod Alchemy sect had been plundered and were carried by the 3 of them. Elder Kai was at the 6th level of the Origin Emperor realm, while Elder Qi and Elder Chao were at the 7th and 8th level of the Origin Emperor realm respectively. They were all rare experts. Therefore, the benefits that the 3 of them took were also different. Relatively speaking, there were not many things in Elder Kai's space bag, and more on the 2 of them. There's no use in keeping this old thing. Kill him. In the end, handsome Su said to Su-yi, let's imprison him in the mysterious space first. What if he comes in handy in the future? Su-yi said. Under Su-yi's watch, he summoned the mysterious dimension and placed Elder Kai inside. At the same time, Su-yi used the power of the mysterious dimension to open the portal bag. Come, let's see what's inside. With excitement, Su-yi walked out of the mysterious space and sat down on the ground. He poured out many things from his space bag and piled them up on the ground. I'm rich, rich, rich. Looking at the pile of things in front of him, Su-yi smiled from ear to ear like a blooming flower. Wow, are these all Tao artifacts? Feng Qi also widened her eyes and blinked. She picked up a long sword on the ground and waved it gently. When she poured her prenatal qi into it, a light wave spread out. At the same time, she could hear the roars of wind and thunder beasts. This was a Tao artifact, and it was very rare. For ordinary martial artists of third-rate forces, only those at the Origin Emperor realm had the chance to possess it. For example, the young sect master of the Gimdeo sect, Yang Chuan, only had a damaged golden scale blazing sky bow in his hand. This was because the Gimdeo sect was a vassal of the Tiangang sect and was bestowed by the Tiangang sect. However, now, among the pile of things on the ground, there were more than a dozen Tao artifacts as far as the eye could see. They were mainly sabers and swords, and there was also a long spear and a large halberd. It had to be said that as a second-rate force, the Jade Tripod Alchemy Sect Foundation was really strong. If the other 2 people also had more than 10 or 20 Tao artifacts, then there would be dozens of them in total. There are so many spiritual herbs, so many star-grade ones. Su-yi flipped through the items on the ground and picked up a spiritual herb that looked like tender grass to observe. This thing looked inconspicuous, but had a strong energy fluctuation. It was a star grade. Yellow grade. There's actually a yellow grade. Soon, he saw 3 more yellow grade spiritual herbs, which made Su ecstatic. Yellow grade spiritual herbs were already very rare. When refining some high-grade medicinal pills, they could play a huge role. This thing could indeed be used as a foundation. Who knew when it would be of great use? I'm rich, I'm rich. He kept rubbing his hands. His eyes were glowing with green light, and he was extremely excited. Other than more than a dozen Dao artifacts and high-grade spiritual herbs, there were also a lot of Xian weapons and spirit weapons. There were also Chun-grade and Moon-grade spiritual herbs that were piled up like a small mountain. This was indeed a part of the foundation of a second-rate sect. It was definitely much richer than a third-rate force. However, he was slightly disappointed that there were no magic artifacts here. Back then, when he fought with Luo Cheng and Lu Yinghong, the weapons in their hands were indeed magic artifacts. However, they were all damaged in the battle and were almost reduced to scrap. They were of no value. In addition, the jade cauldron that his eldest brother, Merciless West, had obtained from Qiao Sanja outside the Jade Tripod Alchemy sect was also a magic artifact. Feng Qia, what weapon do you want? Pick whatever you want. He waved his hand and said heroically. Feng Qi covered her mouth and laughed coquettishly. Then, she shook her head and said, It's enough for me to have the soul-nurturing pearl. I'll slowly refine it in the future. It shouldn't be inferior to a magic artifact. He nodded. He also knew the uniqueness of the soul-nurturing pearl. The other 2 people are much stronger. They should have more good things on them. Su Yi's eyes gradually lit up. Thinking of the remaining 2 experts of the Jade Tripod Alchemy sect who had escaped, he could not help but smile. He put away all the things on the ground and put them into the space bag. He saw that there were still a large number of prenatal stones in the space bag. There were 1-star, 2-star, and 3-star prenatal stones. The exact number could not be calculated at the moment, but it was definitely not a small number. If converted to 1-star prenatal stones, it would probably be no less than a few billion. With so many prenatal stones, He immediately had the aura of a nouveau riche. Although the Bawang sect had mined the mineral deposits and obtained a large number of prenatal stones, which were many times more than the ones in the space bag, He did not handle those prenatal stones. He gave them all to Wang Zhengquan for the development of the Bawang sect. I must find the other 2 as soon as possible and exploit them properly. He chuckled nonstop and muttered to himself, I'm really looking forward to it. If he could obtain all the resources of the Jade Tripod Alchemy sect, it would definitely be a windfall. Not to mention other things, just the dozens of magic artifacts could be equipped in the hands of the many experts of the Bawang sect, increasing their overall strength by a level. Chapter 1262. Boss, let's get going. Who knows, we might bump into those 2 near the secret realm. Handsome Su said. He nodded. That was exactly what he was thinking. After changing his appearance, he led Handsome Su and Feng Qi on the barbarian leopard and continued their journey. Handsome Su also changed his temperament with Feng Qi's help to prevent others from recognizing him. The Chaos Realm was huge. Its overall size was no less than any of the 6 continents and 1 ocean. And the rest continued their journey towards the northwest. This time, their speed was much faster. The barbarian leopard was traveling at top speed and would occasionally take a break. After all, the barbarian leopard was only in the demon spirit realm and didn't have a lot of stamina. Time passed quickly. In the blink of an eye, 20 days had passed. It had been almost a month since He left the Bawang sect. If there's a teleportation gate, it would be much more convenient to travel. He thought of the teleportation gate. This kind of thing could be seen in the big cities of the central continent, but it was very rare in the Chaos Realm. It seemed that this had a lot to do with the structure of the Chaos Realm. After all, the Chaos Realm was extremely chaotic. Killing and fighting were everywhere. Even the 3 first-rate forces weren't peaceful. Therefore, there wasn't much communication between them. Of course, there should be teleportation gates in some of the big cities under the 3 first-rate forces. After all, those things could bring in a huge amount of income. Anyone who used them would have to pay a hefty fee. Ordinary rogue cultivators couldn't afford to use them. Therefore, the most common way to travel in a chaos realm was to circulate yuan qi or ride a barbarian beast. However, there were very few people who had the ability to subdue a barbarian beast. Along the way, Su Yi and the rest met many rogue cultivators. However, they didn't have any interactions with each other. When they saw Su Yi and the rest riding on the barbarian leopard, many rogue cultivators became very cautious. No one dared to provoke them. In addition, they also passed by the territories of some small forces. However, most of them were unranked forces. I wonder how long it will take to reach the secret realm. Su Yi muttered to himself. He didn't know much about the chaos realm. He was just going in the general direction. Not long after, when the group passed by a barbaric beast territory, Su Yi had subdued a scarlet blaze lion. Its cultivation had reached the middle level of the Yaotian realm. Since then, barbarian Bao had been placed in the mysterious space by Su Yi, and he rode on the scarlet blaze lion instead. Time was like a fleeting shadow, passing by in a hurry. His cultivation base was quietly cultivated, and in the blink of an eye, another month had passed. Boss, aren't we almost there? We're meeting more and more people now. Hearing this, Su Yi slowly opened his eyes and exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. He ordered the red blaze lion to slow down and began to survey the surroundings. Not far away from them, there were indeed some figures that were currently resting. Su Yi wasn't surprised. Just as handsome Su had said, they had been meeting more and more people in the past 2 days. I guess we're almost there. It's time to ask around so we don't go astray. Su Yi thought for a moment and said. He wasn't sure if they were going astray. After all, the chaos realm was too big. If they went astray, it would be a huge mistake. With this thought in mind, Su Yi found a place to stop and started cooking. When they passed by the barbarian beast territory, he killed a few barbarian beasts that attacked them and put them in his interspatial bag. In the distance, the group of people saw Su Yi and the others. They were cautious at first, but when they saw Su Yi and Feng Qi getting busy, they were puzzled. Seeing that he could eat meat again, little handsome Su stood on Su Yi's shoulder and was so excited that he wanted to howl. However, under Su Yi's command, he kept his mouth shut and didn't say a word. His eyes, however, were shining with a green light. After a long time, Su Yi and Feng Qi sat on 2 rocks, roasting meat and stewing soup. The aroma lingered in the forest. Let's eat. Su Yi hadn't eaten meat for more than a month, so he couldn't help but feel hungry. After giving handsome Su, Feng Qi and the barbarian beast stew to roast meat and stew, he also started eating. He cut off pieces of roasted meat with a sharp knife and put them into his mouth. The rich aroma wafted in the air, whetting everyone's appetite. They ate with relish, especially handsome Su, who wanted to swallow his tongue as well. As for the barbarian beast stew, it was the first time it had eaten Su Yi's roasted meat, so its eyes lit up. However, just as they were enjoying their meal, Su Yi caught a glimpse of a young man running over from the crowd in the distance. As he ran, his throat moved. Little brother, I wonder if I can get a piece of meat to eat? The young man ran to Su Yi's side and opened his mouth to speak. He had a mischievous smile on his face and was not reserved at all. Su Yi smiled and cut off an entire leg with his sharp sword. He threw it to the young man without saying anything. Thank you, thank you. The young man took the roasted meat and thanked Su Yi repeatedly. His eyes were bright, and he was very happy. After that, he ran back with the roasted meat. Su Yi clearly saw that among the people who came with the young man, there were a few older people who were frowning. They looked worried as if they had a headache because of the young man. Those people seemed to be from the mysterious Frost sect. Su Yi said softly to Feng Qi, and handsome Su as he ate the meat. At the Alliance Conference, he had seen many third-rate forces compete. Among them was the mysterious Frost sect. Su Yi still had an impression of them. However, on the whole, the younger generation of the mysterious Frost sect was not very strong. Compared to the Xinjian sect and the Liuhe sect, they were far from the top 10. It was also because he knew the other party's background that Su-yi did not refuse the other party's request for meat. In addition, he was now in disguise, and handsome Su had changed his temperament, so the young man did not recognize them. But it seems that the mysterious Frost sect is not weak. Handsome Su said vaguely as he chewed. Under his perception, the strength of this group of people could not be concealed, and all of them were spied upon by him. Su-yi nodded. There were more than 10 people from the mysterious Frost sect present this time. There were 5 old people, 3 middle-aged people, and 4 young people around 30 years old. Chapter 1263. Apart from the old man and the middle-aged man, the remaining 4 young people had decent strength. Almost all of them were at the advanced stage of Yuanzhan. Su-yi estimated that not all of the mysterious Frost sect's powerful experts were here. They should only be a part of them. He did not pay much attention to them. He continued to eat the barbecued meat, and then began to serve the thick meat soup. He blew on the surface of the soup and took a sip. He allowed a satisfied sigh. Feng Qi, Handsome Su, and the Scarlet Flame Lion all had greasy mouths. They looked happy. On the other side, there seemed to be a small dispute between the people from the mysterious Frost sect. After the young man brought the huge beast leg meat back, he cut it into more than 10 pieces with a knife. He wanted to give everyone a share. However, most of them did not take it. There were even 2 old men who pointed at the young man's nose as if they were criticizing him. However, the young man kept smiling. He did not care about the elders scolding at all. He continued to eat the beast meat. The others held the meat in their hands. They did not know whether to eat it or not. Eat it, eat it. If someone poisons you to death, I won't even bury you. And Niu Qingshan, if he dies, throw him into the barbaric beast's territory. A white-haired old man waved his hand angrily and said to the other 3 young men who were holding the barbecued meat in their hands. The Niu Qingshan he was talking about was the young man who asked Su-yi for meat. The 3 young men were suspicious. They stared at Niu Qingshan for a long time and realized that he did not show any symptoms after eating the meat. After a long time, they began to eat the meat. As the fragrance of the meat spread in their mouths, they did not care about their image at all. They ate heartily and nodded because the meat was just too fragrant. The few elders from the mysterious Frost sect were so angry that their noses were almost crooked. They rolled their eyes at Niu Qingshan. As the chief disciple of the sect, the entire younger generation in the sect had been led astray by this guy. Meanwhile, Niu Qingshan was eating the beast meat like a whirlwind. It made the elders' heads hurt. However, after a long time, when Niu Qingshan and the other young men finished eating, everything was normal. The elders were relieved, looking at the 2 people and 2 beasts who were still drinking soup in the distance. The people of the mysterious Frost sect had an indescribable strange feeling in their hearts. Elder Gao, don't be angry. When I'm done with this, I'll definitely brew your favorite purple mist cloud tea for you. Niu Qingshan finished eating and went to the white-haired old man's side with a grin. The old man's anger dissipated when he heard the words purple mist cloud tea. However, he still glared at Niu Qingshan. The other elders did not say anything. Niu Qingshan's ability to please people was well known in the mysterious Frost sect. Every elder and guardian in the sect liked this kid very much. Elders, I'll go and thank that little brother again, Niu Qingshan said, and then ran towards Su-yi and the rest. Elder Gao, who was standing behind him, thought for a moment before following him. In reality, most of the people present knew one thing. Although Niu Qingshan was frivolous, he was not stupid. He dared to ask for meat from the young man over there, so he had a way to determine if the other party would harm him. At the end of the day, they were too nervous. However, they had to be careful when walking in the chaos territory. After all, the human heart was sinister, and the world was unpredictable. I had such a good meal. On Su-yi's side, Handsome Su rubbed his round belly after eating and said. However, his voice was very soft, and only the few of them could hear him. Su-yi put down his big bowl and glanced over. He saw the young man and an old man coming together. They soon arrived in front of him. Little brother, thank you for the barbecue. I have to say that your cooking skills are amazing. Niu Shan stood in front of Su Yi and gave him a thumbs up. He said with an exaggerated expression and licked his lips at the same time. Of course, my cooking skills have been passed down from 10 generations of ancestors. Su Yi smiled faintly and spouted nonsense with a straight face. I'm Gao Tsong, an elder of the mysterious Frost sect. How should I address you, little brother? At that moment, the old man who came with Niu Shan spoke. He took a good look at Su Yi. He had a feeling that this young man was not simple. Whether it was his attire or the aura on his body, he vaguely revealed a hidden sharpness. I'm Feng Yun. This is my sister, Feng Qi'er. Su Yi cupped his fists and answered. Feng Yun, Elder Gao Tsong frowned. He thought about the names of the famous young powerhouses in the Chaos Territory, but he could not match them. From what he could sense, Feng Yun's cultivation base was at the advanced stage of Yuanjin stage. He was almost at the 8th or 9th stage of Yuanjin stage. Although he tried to hide it, he could not escape from Elder Gao's prying. Gao Tsong couldn't help but guess that Feng Yun and Feng Qi'er were disciples of a third-rate force, or even a second-rate force, since they had such a cultivation base at such a young age and the Demon True Realm Scarlet Blaze Lion as their mount. I'm Niu Shan. I'll call you Brother Feng Yun from now on. Niu Shan stepped forward and grinned. He seemed to be very familiar with Su Yi. Su Yi shrugged at the guy who was so friendly. However, he still said with a smile, Sure, I'll call you Brother Niu then. Unexpectedly, Niu Shan waved his hand and said, Brother Niu sounds terrible. Just call me Brother Shan. Su Yi touched his nose. He did not continue the conversation this time. After a few simple exchanges, they were indeed more familiar with each other. Elder Gao Tsong was initially quite wary of Su Yi, but he slowly let his guard down. Su Yi, on the other hand, began to inquire about the mystic realm. Just as he had guessed, the place where the secret realm had appeared was not too far from here. However, the area was already under the control of 3 first-rate forces and 6 second-rate forces. It was not an easy task for many third-rate forces to get involved in it. For the sake of the secret realm, the 9 major organizations had sealed off a large area. It was difficult for small organizations and rogue cultivators to set foot inside. Actually, it's not that we can't sneak in. It's just that even if we do, it'll be difficult for us to find traces of the secret realm. We might even be discovered by the 9 major organizations and get ourselves killed. Elder Gao Tsong said. Su Yi nodded to show that he understood. The 3 first-rate organizations and 6 second-rate organizations definitely wanted to control the secret realm completely. They must have sent a large number of powerhouses. As for the small organizations and rogue cultivators, they dared not simply barge in. Otherwise, they would be targeted. Chapter 1264. Many people in the Chaos Territory had received the news that a new mystic realm had appeared, especially the true powerhouses. For some desperados, they might be able to obtain information about the mystic realm as soon as possible if they sneaked into the cracks of the 9 great forces. From there, they would have the opportunity to obtain benefits as soon as possible. Therefore, Su Yi felt that there must be many small forces or itinerant cultivators who had entered the sealed area of the 9 great forces. Does this mystic realm really exist? I wonder how much information the 9 great forces have grasped. Su Yi frowned and muttered to himself. His information was still the same as what the people from the Green Cloud Palace had said a few months ago. After these few months, there shouldn't have been no progress at all. That's hard to say. They definitely have more information than us, but no one leaked it easily. However, there are also some pieces of information that have spread. It said that after the discovery of the mystic realm a few months ago, there have been a few more movements in the past few months. However, the few great forces still haven't locked onto its tracks. Elder Gao thought for a moment and said to Su, What we can be sure of now is that the movements in this mystic realm are becoming more and more frequent. Moreover, the energy that is seeping out from it is very dense. It's definitely a very powerful mystic realm. I heard that it's much more mysterious than when the Great Spirit Mystic Realm was first discovered. Su Yi fell in a deep thought. What Elder Gao said should not be a secret. Even the many cultivators in the periphery should know about it. He was extremely interested. A mystic realm that was difficult to track was different from an ordinary place. At the very least, most mystic realms could only be said to be difficult to enter. However, it was not like this mystic realm that seemed to know how to escape. Brother Fengyan, what are your plans? Why don't you stay at the mysterious frost sect for a while? Niu Qingshan suddenly broadcasted and said to Sui. The mysterious frost sect was not far from here, so they sent out most of the powerhouses in the sect to investigate the situation. However, after a long time, they still found nothing. There's no need, Brother Qingshan. I'm going to walk around the periphery. What if the mystic realm completely appears? Sui shook his head and said, after obtaining the general information, Suyi's current objective was somewhat achieved. In fact, he didn't plan to take a stroll in the periphery. No matter what, he wanted to go to the sealed area of the 9 great forces. There were many loose cultivators and people from small forces gathered in the periphery, but if they wanted to obtain the most useful information, they had to enter the core area. Other than inquiring about the situation of the mystic realm, what he was most concerned about right now was the other 2 people from the Jade Tripod Alchemy sect. He had to find them. If that's the case, why don't you come with us? We can take care of each other, Niu Qingshan said again. Sui thought about it and did not refuse. He was not in a hurry these few days, so it was not a bad choice to stay with the people of the mysterious frost sect for the time being. At the very least, there would be someone to lead the way. Everything could wait until he was familiar with the surrounding environment. Just like that, he brought Feng Qi, Handsome Su, and the Red Blaze Lion to join the mysterious frost sect's team. Elder Gao Tsang and the other elders of the mysterious frost sect did not say much about the addition of these 2 people and 2 beasts. After all, this young man's strength was not enough to threaten them. Of course, they did not know the true identities of Su, Yi, and the others. Otherwise, they would not be so calm. I wonder when the mystic realm will truly appear. Su, Yi, and the people of the mysterious frost sect began to wander around the nearby area. It looked no different from wandering around. They also encountered many small forces and loose cultivators. Almost all of them were here to try their luck. The place where the mystic realm appeared before was sealed, but this did not mean that it was impossible for it to appear in the periphery. If they were lucky enough to encounter it, they would have the chance to be the first to benefit. There are many loose cultivators and small forces around here. Some of them are very powerful and not to be trifled with. Even among the loose cultivators, there are extremely powerful people. Niu Qingshan said to Sui as he walked casually. Sui nodded when he heard that. He agreed with that. There were too many loose cultivators in the Chaos territory, and there was no lack of terrifying people among them. During the Alliance conference, there were some obscure auras in the crowd in the square that could not be underestimated. However, Sui was not worried about that now that they were in the periphery. This was because the true powerhouses definitely had a way to enter the seal of the 9 great forces. They rarely stayed in the periphery. The group of people walked around aimlessly, rarely interacting with other people. Among the people, Niu Qingshan was relatively more restless. His eyes were bright as he patrolled around. From time to time, he would kill a few big birds for Sui to roast and eat. Sui could tell that this guy was a complete foodie. The main reason why he was so enthusiastic about him was because of his skills in roasting meat and stewing soup. When he was cooking, Niu Qingshan had been watching carefully from his side. He even licked his lips. It was obvious that he wanted to learn how to cook. Sui only smiled softly at that. He did not care at all. How much Niu Qingshan could learn depended on his ability. However, speaking of which, the meat of wild beasts that had not gained intelligence did not taste good. Relatively speaking, it was far less delicious than the meat of wild beasts that had cultivated. However, looking at Niu Qingshan, he was eating with relish. Time passed very quickly. In the blink of an eye, Sui and the people from the mysterious frost sect had been strolling around for 7 to 8 days. It was also on this day that all the rogue cultivators and small forces active in the mountains and forests suddenly became excited, as if they had eaten a great tonic. At the same time, a piece of news began to spread among everyone with an unstoppable momentum. There's movement in the mystic realm again. It's at the swamp. Go take a look. Such a piece of news made countless people extremely excited. A large number of independent cultivators and people from small forces rushed in the same direction. It actually appeared at the swamp. That place is not within the range of the 9 great forces seal. In mysterious frost sect, Elder Gao Song muttered to himself with a fervent look on his face. Su-yi understood when he heard that. Since it was not within the range of those forces seal, it was the best opportunity for many small forces and loose cultivators. Let's go quickly too, Su-yi called out. Then, under the lead of the people from the mysterious frost sect, they walked in a direction. Through everyone's information, Su-yi knew that there was a swamp not far away. Very few people would step foot on it. After all, most loose cultivators and people from small forces would consume a lot of vitality to fly. Chapter 1265. Su-yi and the people from the mysterious frost sect did not waste any time and left quickly. The swamp was not far away, but it was not very close either. According to the speed of an ordinary high-level Yuan Jin martial artist, it would take about 3 to 4 days to travel at full speed. However, Su-yi was riding on the Scarlet Flame Lion, so his speed was doubled. In addition, apart from a few young disciples, the rest of the people from the mysterious frost sect were focused on the Origin Void stage. Therefore, they arrived at the swamp in less than 2 days. Along the way, they encountered many rogue cultivators, but there was still no interaction between them. However, it was not very peaceful along the way. The word chaos in the chaos territory was vividly displayed when there were many people. One could often see people attacking and killing each other. All of this was because there were no restrictions. Everyone, let's split up and investigate the situation. When they arrived at the swamp, Su-yi cupped his hands and said to Elder Gao Song, Nioqing Shan, and the rest from the mysterious frost sect, "All right, goodbye, little brother." Elder Gao Song did not ask him to stay. He also cupped his hands and said, Nioqing Shan wanted to say something, but when he heard Elder Gao's words, he could not help but smile bitterly. Then, he bid farewell to Su-yi and the rest. Goodbye. Su-yi nodded. He was about to turn around and leave with handsome Su, Feng Qi, and the Scarlet Flame Lion. However, at that moment, a sharp laughter suddenly rang in everyone's ears, causing Su-yi and the rest to stop in their tracks. The people from the mysterious frost sect also stopped in their tracks. I was wondering who it was. So, it's the bunch of good-for-nothings from the mysterious frost sect. Opposite Su-yi, a group of people walked over slowly. The leader was a fat old man with big ears. He laughed sinisterly and blocked Su-yi's path. At the same time, the fat old man's gaze finally landed on Gao Tsong and the rest from the mysterious frost sect. Chai Jian, I advise you to learn more about verbal insults. Otherwise, you'll die a horrible death. Elder Gao Tsong's face darkened when he heard that, and he replied. The rest of the people from the mysterious frost sect also glared at the fat old man and the others coldly. So you're from the blue fire sect. Su-yi didn't make sound. He stood there without moving, but his eyebrows twitched. He was even more familiar with the people who were walking over because the Jade Fire sect had obtained one of the 10 spots in the Alliance Conference. In the end, 20 disciples had entered the secret realm of ominous spirits. They could be said to be very powerful. From the looks of it, there seemed to be some conflict between Mysterious Frost sect and Jade Fire sect. However, Su-yi didn't intend to get involved in this matter. Even handsome Su and Feng Qi, who were on his shoulder, remained silent. Little brother, you should leave first. This has nothing to do with you. Elder Gao Tsong said as he looked at Su-yi and the others. Up until now, he was more or less certain that this young man was definitely not from some second-rate force, and his background was at most a third-rate force. Otherwise, there was no need for him to mingle in the outer area. However, this was a matter between the Mysterious Frost sect and the Blue Fire sect. He didn't want this young man to get involved. After getting along with him for the past few days, he felt that this young man was quite nice. However, just as he finished speaking, the fat old man from the Blue Fire sect stretched out his hand and slightly blocked Su Yi's way of leaving. He sneered and said, "This kid looks unfamiliar. He doesn't seem to be from the mysterious Frost sect, but his cultivation is quite good. Chai Jian, if you have any problems with the Blue Fire sect, just come at us. Don't think that the mysterious Frost sect is afraid of you." As Elder Gao Tsang spoke, he suddenly drew out a long saber. A cold light burst out and a cold air swirled. Clang, clang, clang. As soon as he moved, the rest of the people from the mysterious Frost sect also drew out their sabers and swords. They were all ready to attack at any time. Their eyes were filled with intense hatred as they stared at the people of the Blue Fire sect. "What are you nervous about?" The old man from the Blue Fire sect called Chai Jian sneered. He looked at Su Yi and then glanced at Elder Gao Tsang. He laughed strangely and said, "Gao Tsang, why are you so nervous about this little bastard? Is he a bastard you gave birth to outside? He. He looks very handsome, but unfortunately, he doesn't look like you at all." Ah. As Chai Jian's words spread, all the people from the Blue Fire sect laughed. Everyone was swaying back and forth in an exaggerated manner. Su Yi heard all these words, and his face was so dark that it looked like it was about to drip water. The aura on his body fluctuated and spread out for no reason. The Origin Supreme technique was activated, and a brazen pressure suddenly appeared, making everyone's heart skip a beat. "Boss, I'm going to tear this old dog apart," Su Xiaoshui said to Su Yi through voice transmission, and a murderous intent spread out. However, Su Yi gave Su Xiaoshui a look, indicating that he should not act rashly. He also suppressed his restless emotions and slowly withdrew the Origin Supreme technique. The pressure in the air dissipated, making the others feel as if it was just an illusion. Su Yi did not intend to make a move now. Otherwise, his identity would be exposed, which would be disadvantageous to his next move. "Chai Jian, don't slander me. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude." Gao Tsang's face was also very ugly, and the veins on his forehead were bulging. "Oh. I also want to know what ability your mysterious Frost sect has to dare say such words to my Blue Fire sect." Chai Jian's mouth twitched, and he sneered. At this moment, a very fat young man behind him walked forward and pointed at Su Yi. "Elder Chai, look, that kid has a little bird with him. Is he trying to impersonate the great conqueror Su Yi?" As soon as these words came out, many people became interested. Su Yi, the sect leader of the Bawang sect, was known by everyone in the Chaos territory. The little bird beside him also had an extraordinary origin, and many people took delight in talking about it. However, just based on the appearance of the legends, it was very different from the two people in front of them. Moreover, the people of the Blue Fire sect had seen Su Yi with their own eyes. Any Tom, Dick, or Harry wants to impersonate Su Yi. The little bird beside him has the phoenix bloodline. But what is this thing? Could it be a crow? Ah, that's right. I think it's a crow. Many people in the Blue Fire sect laughed loudly and looked at Su Yi and Su Xiaoshui with mockery. "Xiaoshui, don't be rash." Su Yi held Su Xiaoshui down. Otherwise, this guy would definitely make a move. It was not that Su Yi did not want to deal with these people in front of him, but he had important things to do now, so he had to endure as much as he could. After a long time of comforting, Su Xiaoshui finally calmed down, but his bird eyes were filled with a biting cold murderous aura. Su Yi and Su Xiaoshui remembered this Blue Fire sect. "Brother Feng Yun, if a fight breaks out later, take the opportunity to leave quickly." Chapter 1266. Su Yi was not interested in how incompatible the Blue Fire sect and the mysterious Frost sect were. He still did not plan to get involved in this matter. He nodded lightly when he heard Niu Qingshan's words. However, these words also fell into the ears of Chai Jian from the Blue Fire sect. He laughed strangely again and said, "My Blue Fire sect has no time to compete with your mysterious Frost sect. Take this little bastard and get lost." "Get lost, huh? And that crow, go somewhere else to pretend." Everyone from the Blue Fire sect laughed loudly as they glanced at Su Yi and the people from the mysterious Frost sect. Gaotsong clenched his fists tightly as his eyes darkened. The others also looked extremely gloomy. However, they did not act rashly because the Blue Fire sect was powerful, much more powerful than their mysterious Frost sect. There were 5 Origin Emperors here alone. Once they fought, the mysterious Frost sect would definitely be at a disadvantage. Let's go. Elder Gaotsong's face darkened as he spoke in a deep voice. He was prepared to leave with his people and continue exploring the secret realm. He did not want to be entangled with the Blue Fire sect here. However, before he could turn around, he saw the young man who had been with him for a few days slowly take a step forward and walk towards the Blue Fire sect group. Little brother Feng Yun. Elder Gaotsong was shocked and hurriedly shouted. Niu Qingshan was also stunned on the spot as he opened his mouth and called out. However, Su Yi ignored them. He walked to Chai Jian and the others and stopped 3 meters away. He looked coldly at the people from the Blue Fire sect. What? Little bastard, are you still not convinced? Among the nearly 20 people from the Blue Fire sect, a young man around 30 years old sneered and asked Su Yi, I've already given you a chance. I didn't expect you to still be so arrogant. Since that's the case, then pay the price for what you said. Su Yi said faintly. Once again, he took one step at a time towards the people of the Blue Fire clan. As he took a step forward, the origin energy on his body skyrocketed and instantly erupted with the power of the Origin Void stage. As Su Yi descended step by step, the aura on his body overlapped layer by layer like a flood striking the sky. First level Origin Void stage, second level Origin Void stage, third level Origin Void stage, fourth level Origin Void stage. Such a scene stunned everyone from the Blue Fire sect and the mysterious Frost sect. No one would have thought that the young man's cultivation was actually at the Origin Void realm. Moreover, in just a short while, he had the power of an advanced Origin Void realm expert. What arrogance! So what if you're at the Origin Void stage? Do you think this place will allow you to jump around? Chai Jian sneered as he looked at Su Yi. The young man's aura was extremely powerful. Even Chai Jian was trembling a little. However, Chai Jian still tried his best to remain calm. After all, he was a high-level Origin Emperor. No wonder he dared to pretend to be the Bawang sect leader with a crow. So he's already at the Origin Void stage. Someone from the Blue Fire sect said in shock, but he did not panic. However, when he heard those words, he heard a cursing voice. You are the crow. Your whole family are crows. The voice came from handsome Su. He couldn't take it anymore and flew out. His spirit energy spread out, dispersing the black, fiendish aura around him. A bright flame spewed out from his mouth and instantly rushed towards the people from the Blue Fire sect. A bright red light beam shot out and blasted the person who had just spoken. The speed of the light beam was unbelievably fast. Even the many Origin Emperors present did not have time to react. Chi. In the blink of an eye, when the flames touched that person's body, it was as if it had burned a withered leaf. It instantly transformed into a ball of bright flames, and then the person's body turned into a pile of ashes and disappeared. All of this happened too quickly, and no one was able to react in time. However, the person who spoke in the end had already been obliterated, and he died completely. Since the Blue Fire sect is so arrogant, then all of you shall stay here. Su Yi's cold voice was also heard at this moment. No one knew when, but he had already held a long sword in his hand. The 13 Gale swords was executed. Streaks of sword light brazenly shot out and swept towards the people from the Blue Fire sect. Caught off guard, 2 young Origin Emperor stage disciples were instantly slashed into pieces by the sword and died a violent death. It was only at this moment that Chai Jian and the other Blue Fire sect powerhouses finally reacted. A small bird that could talk, coupled with the cultivation that the young man displayed, had actually reached the 9th level of the Origin Void stage. It was hard to imagine. Little bastard, how dare you? I'm going to tear you apart. Chai Jian's eyes immediately turned red, and he was furious. Several disciples were killed in succession right under his nose. This caused him to be unable to restrain his anger, and he instantly went berserk. A dark green flame sprang out from his body. The blazing heat spread out, as if it was going to burn through the sky. You dare to make a fuss in front of me, with just you? However, the small bird in his eyes spread its wings. With a light flap, an even more terrifying flame surged out and directly enveloped Chai Jian's body. The flame was too terrifying. It bound Chai Jian with an unstoppable force. The blazing aura burned everything in the sky. In an instant, a shrill cry sounded out from within the flame and shot into the sky. Chai Jian's body twisted as he wanted to escape. However, there seemed to be a mighty force within the flame that bound him, causing him to be firmly restrained on the spot. He could only howl miserably. Noisy, Su Xiaoshui snorted coldly. Suddenly, he opened his mouth and spat out a crimson-red flame. It was like burning blood, and its might was terrifying and peerless. Chai Jian's shrill cry grew louder. However, it only lasted for less than 2 breaths of time before it suddenly stopped. Under everyone's gazes, the flame slowly retreated. Along with that, Chai Jian's body was like a piece of dry wood that was completely burned, turning into a pile of black ash that slowly fell to the ground. Elder Chai, everyone from the Blue Fire sect, was dumbstruck. All of them stood on the spot in disbelief with their eyes wide open. Elder Chai, who was the strongest amongst them, had actually died just like that. Not even a trace of him was left behind. This was unacceptable. On the other side, Gao Tsong, Niuqing Shan, and the other members of the mysterious Frost sect were all shocked to the extreme. Pseudo New Chapter Section HP. Above $. They all saw that the small bird that had always looked unremarkable and even had an evil aura was now awe-inspiring, like a god standing between heaven and earth. In addition, the young man in brocade was also extremely extraordinary. His aura was vigorous, and his killing intent was fierce. He rushed into the crowd of the Blue Fire sect and slashed out several more times. Along with that, the Blue Fire sect disciples fell to the ground. An Origin Emperor Realm Elder of the Blue Fire sect, widened his eyes and pointed at Su Yi and the imposing little bird in shock. He said in a trembling voice, "F Phoenix. It's that Phoenix." Chapter 1267. The Elder of the Blue Fire sect was very sure that the bird in front of him was the divine bird of the Bawang sect, because its appearance was exactly the same as in the rumors. In that case, the identity of the young man in front of him was even more obvious. Su, another elder of the Blue Fire sect spoke in a trembling voice, his body almost collapsing to the ground. The master of the Bawang sect, Su Yi, had the means to disguise himself. It was said that he had also changed his appearance to participate in the Central State Sacred Martial Arts Conference. Therefore, there was no one else who could make the divine bird follow him except for Su Yi. "You have a good eye. Unfortunately, it's too late now," Su Yi said softly. With a sweep of his sword, he killed an Origin Void Realm expert of the Blue Fire sect. At the same time, he said to Handsome Su, "Handsome, I'll leave all the Origin Emperors to you. Don't let any of them go." His eyes were burning like 2 sharp knives. "Yes, boss," Handsome Su responded. The two of them had never been soft-hearted people. Originally, they didn't want to get involved in the matter between the Blue Fire sect and the mysterious Frost sect. Who would have thought that the people of the Blue Fire sect would be so relentless and provoke them as much as they could, which made Su Yi and Su Shui angry. Since they couldn't tolerate it, they didn't need to tolerate it anymore. Even if they had to expose their identity, they had to rub the people of the Blue Fire sect into the ground. This was Su Yi's style. In an instant, Su Xiaoshui rushed towards the remaining Origin Emperor Realm powerhouses. He spread his wings and flapped them lightly. Another wave of terrifying flames spread out and enveloped the other Origin Emperor Realm powerhouses like a heavenly waterfall. Sui also moved. He held his sword upside down and attacked the other people of the Blue Fire sect. Since their identities had been exposed, he and Handsome Su didn't hold back anymore. If these people didn't die, the news that they were here would spread quickly, which would be very disadvantageous for their next operation. Spare me. My lord, please let me go. The people of the Blue Fire sect changed their arrogant attitude. When they realized the true identity of the opponent in front of them, most of them went weak in the knees and begged for mercy. However, what responded to them was a blazing flame and a cold sword light. After a while, nearly 20 Blue Fire sect experts, including 5 Origin Emperors, 7 Origin Void Realm, and 7 Yuanjin Realm, were all killed. Most of them were lying in pools of blood. As for those Origin Emperors, they were burned into piles of black ash. Not even dregs were left. In front of Su Yi and Handsome Su, these people could not even withstand a single blow. Even if they had the advantage in numbers, it would only take them a little more time. Su Yi and Little Shuai are amazing. In the distance, Feng Qi-er's heart throbbed as she watched all of this. She was very envious of Su Yi and Handsome Su's strength. Although it wasn't her first time seeing them, she still couldn't help but sigh. Little brother Feng Yin, is he really Su Yi? Elder Gao Song stood there like a wooden stump, not moving at all. Niu Qingshan's eyes were as wide as a bull's. They were about to pop out of their sockets. They never thought that the young man who had traveled with them for a few days was actually the most famous young man in the Chaos Territory in the past year. He was the sect master of Bawang's sect, who had a series of legendary deeds. Su Yi. Feng Qi, let's go. After doing all this, Su Yi waved at Feng Qi. When the red flame line saw this, it leaped and brought her to Su Yi's side. Su Yi and Handsome Su did not delay. They directly rode on the barbaric beast and left quickly. In an instant, they were far away and entered the dense forest. Before leaving, Su Yi took a deep look at the people of Mysterious Frost sect, but he did not say anything. He's gone. Niu Qingshan's throat rolled as he muttered. Watching Su Yi, Handsome Su, and the 2 beasts disappear from their sight, they were initially shocked. However, they suddenly realized that they seemed to have come back from the gates of hell. Amazing. This was incredible. This time, the news of the Mystic Realm had actually attracted this guy over. It'll definitely be lively next. If the 9 great forces know about this, their expressions will be very interesting. An elder of the Mysterious Frost sect murmured, his body trembling slightly. We must not leak this news. No matter who asks, we must say that we don't know the true identity of that young man just now. After pondering for a long time, Elder Gao Song said these words. He had reason to believe that with Su Yi and the Phoenix's ability, it would be easy for them to kill them. Did they not see that so many people from Blue Fire sect had been killed? However, the truth was that Su Yi did not kill them. He only left quickly after killing all the people from Blue Fire sect. It was obvious that he did not want to expose his identity completely. Understood, Elder Gao. However, many people should have seen what happened just now. Niu Qingshan nodded. Everything happened in front of them, so they naturally heard what everyone said just now. However, there were also many itinerant cultivators and small forces in the distance. They had also seen Su Yi and the Little Bird attack. It was inevitable that some people would associate it with the Bawang sect. That was actually not difficult to guess. It's their business what they think. We just have to keep our mouth shut. If you don't want to die, listen to me obediently. Gao Song said softly, but his tone became sharp in the end. Yes, Elder. Many disciples of Mysterious Frost sect responded in unison. They knew very well that Su Yi did not kill them, probably because of their friendship from a few days ago. At the very least, before he was completely exposed to the outside world, Mysterious Frost sect had to keep their mouths shut. They could not leak anything. Boss, can those people really be trusted? On the other side, Su Yi, Su Xiaoshui, and the rest entered the forest and found a remote place to stop. It doesn't matter if they can be trusted or not. Our identities have been exposed. It won't be that easy to investigate in secret anyway. Su Yi said with a bitter smile. Not only did the people from Mysterious Frost sect see him and Su Xiaoshui attack, but some other martial artists also saw it. The news of him coming here could not be hidden. If he wanted to play hide-and-seek next, he would have to change his appearance again. Su Yi made up his mind. He then opened the mysterious space and let Feng Qi and the scarlet fire lion enter. Su Xiaoshui was also forced into it unwillingly. I wonder how the people from Blood Sun Sect and Nine Stars Valley will react if they know that I'm here. Su Yi muttered to himself softly after doing everything. Chapter 1268. This time, Su Yi deliberately took many detours and changed to another place. On the other side of the dense forest was an endless swamp. Previously, Su Yi had only scanned it briefly and had not had the time to observe it carefully. Now that he looked around, he realized that the swamp was very vast, and he could not see the end of it. The entire swamp was sparsely covered with small plants. Most of them were floating grasses that did not have deep roots. Let's find out the exact location of the secret realm first. Su Yi muttered to himself as he stepped on the path alone. He unfolded his body and flew over the swamp. This time, Su Yi disguised himself as a middle-aged man who was close to 40 years old and directly displayed the cultivation of the Origin Void Realm. As he continued to go deeper into the swamp, he would occasionally find a few loose practitioners whose cultivation was not too strong to inquire about the specific situation that had appeared a few days ago. After interacting with the mysterious Frost sect for the past few days, Su Yi already knew that the strange secret realm had appeared several times. However, the location of the fluctuation was not the same every time. Moreover, it was said that when the fluctuation appeared, the surrounding space would be greatly affected and become distorted and blurry. Therefore, even the Origin Ancestor Realm powerhouses dispatched by the 3 first-rate forces could not capture the exact location for a while. Everyone was guessing one thing. The fluctuation of the secret realm was in a different place every time. Was it because the secret realm could move? However, one thing was certain. The secret realm was hidden in nothingness. If one did not completely capture its trajectory, it was impossible to enter it. With this thought in mind, Su Yi stepped on the path and flew high in the sky. Around him, there were also many figures moving far away. However, more of them were running over the swamp. A day later, Su Yi landed on a small slope and looked around. He had a panoramic view of everything around him. In the distance, there were some martial artists resting on solid ground above the swamp. Moreover, there were more people rushing over from behind. Soon, some figures appeared, and it caused his pupils to constrict abruptly. The people of the Blood Sun sect have also arrived here. They are really fast. Su Yi murmured to himself. There were some familiar figures in the group. One of them was a green-robed elder that Su Yi was extremely familiar with. It was Elder Baizun of the Blood Sun sect. Other than Baizun, Wu Jiao, Fu Dongxian, and the others were also there. At a glance, there were 40 to 50 people. Everyone, don't move. Cooperate with the Blood Sun sect's inspection. Those who dare to resist will be killed on the spot. As soon as Chu Yi arrived, he heard someone from the Blood Sun sect shouting in an extremely arrogant manner. 40 to 50 people spread out in a fan shape and surrounded them from afar, driving everyone in the vicinity to one place. Then, someone walked out from the crowd of the Blood Sun sect and began to question and investigate them one by one. There were a few people who wanted to dodge, but as soon as they moved, they were hit by a powerful attack and blasted into the mud of the swamp. Then, they were pulled out. What are they doing? Su Yi raised his eyebrows. Although he was puzzled, he did not think too much about it. He had not expected to meet them so soon. He immediately flew up and headed deeper into the swamp. He did not want to meet the Blood Sun sect face to face. After all, he had disguised himself to avoid them. However, Su Yi had just rushed out a few hundred feet when he heard an arrogant shout behind him. Stop! The voice came from a Blood Sun sect elite. It was like rolling thunder, causing Su Yi's head to buzz. Su Yi ignored it and increased his speed. He did not know if his disguise would work in front of those Origin Ancestor Realm elites. Are you deaf? Didn't you hear me tell you to stop? With a swoosh, a middle-aged man with a strong aura shot through the air and blocked Su Yi's path in an instant. His entire body was emitting the aura of an emperor. Su Yi had no choice but to stop. There was coldness in the depths of his eyes, and he did not say a word. Have you seen Su Yi from the Bawang sect? If you can provide information about him, I will let you live. Facing Su-yi, the middle-aged man's aura gushed out like flowing water, transforming into shackles that wrapped around Su-yi invisibly. I don't know. Su-yi shook his head and simply said 3 words. With a twist of his body, he broke away from the Origin Emperor Realm elite's aura. At the same time, he was shocked. It turned out that the Blood Sun sect had come with such great fanfare just to find him. The Origin Emperor Realm elite was slightly surprised. He had not expected an Origin Void Realm elite to be so calm in front of him. Since you don't know, then follow the rules. Cooperate with our inspection. If you are not Su-yi in disguise, I might let you go if I am happy. The middle-aged man's eyes revealed a sneer as he spoke to Su-yi. With a wave of his arm, vigorous Origin Chi was stimulated and turned into a huge palm that pressed down on Su-yi. As he attacked, fierce energy swirled and cut like a knife. He did not have the slightest intention of holding back. Not far away, the rest of the people from the Blood Sun sect did not pay too much attention to the situation here. They were only constantly interrogating and inspecting the surrounding cultivators. Su-yi understood when he saw the situation. The Blood Sun sect's actions this time were clearly to verify everyone they met, using a carpet-style inspection. It seemed that the Blood Sun sect was determined to find him. Are the rules of the Chaos region set by the Blood Sun sect? Su-yi was furious. He suddenly raised a palm of light and slammed it towards the middle-aged man. With it, Chi-La, the terrifying palm of light, was like Mount high across the sky. It carried the power to destroy everything and brazenly slapped in front of the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man was stunned for a moment. His fist shook the air and instantly smashed the palm of light into pieces. However, at this moment, the person in front of him suddenly dashed out. What a strong Origin Void stage martial artist. The middle-aged man was shocked, and his face immediately darkened. He had never thought that in the Chaos region there would actually be a wandering cultivator who dared to not respect the Blood Sun sect. This made him realize that something was wrong. Let's see where you can run to today. The middle-aged man shouted coldly and quickly chased after him. At the same time, he let out a whistle that attracted the attention of the other Blood Sun sect elites. That guy is strange. Chase him quickly. Immediately, several figures rushed out from the Blood Sun sect crowd. They were like streaks of lightning that streaked across the sky. They were extremely fast, and all of them pounced on Su-yi. Su-yi looked back, and his heart trembled slightly. It was impossible for these people to inspect him. If he fell into a tight encirclement, he would not even be able to escape. One had to know that the Blood Sun sect had several Origin Ancestor Realm elites present at this moment. Su-yi. He is Su-yi. Chase him. Chapter 1269. In an instant, there was an uproar among the Blood Sun sect crowd. A person who was unwilling to be investigated was very likely to be Su-yi, or someone who had a deep grudge against the Blood Sun sect. In any case, there were very few people in the Chaos region who dared to look down on the Blood Sun sect. Su-yi, let's see where you can escape to. Baizun sneered. He took a step forward and crossed hundreds of feet. The power of space followed him like a shadow, surpassing all the Origin Emperors of the Blood Sun sect in an instant and rapidly approaching Su-yi. Su-yi felt his scalp go numb when he sensed this kind of power, but his eyes were deep and unfathomable. This vast swamp was open, and there was no obstruction in sight. No matter which direction he fled in, he would definitely not be able to escape the Blood Sun sect's pursuit. Moreover, there were several Origin ancestors present. For Su-yi, there was almost no way out. Blood Sun sect, all the old and new grudges will be settled with you one day, Su-yi said coldly. He raised his hand and struck out a bright yuan chi light, whistling as it attacked the swamp below. Whoosh! A huge hole instantly appeared in the soft soil and decaying grass under the force of this force. Su-yi did not hesitate and plunged into it. The smell of decaying mud entered his nose and mouth, and his vision was pitch black. Su-yi's mind was clear. The yuan chi under his feet surged and opened up a path sinking all the way down. You can't escape. Above them, a roar rang out, accompanied by a ferocious bombardment. The surrounding swamps were churning and rippling. Su-yi was shaken by this attack, and the terrifying energy passed through the soil and into his body, causing him to groan and almost spit out a mouthful of blood. Fortunately, the swamp absorbed most of the energy. Otherwise, Su-yi would have been half dead, if not dead. With this jolt, Su-yi felt that his speed of descent had increased by a few notches. He did not care and dove down. The swamp was completely soft. The deeper they went, the looser the soil became. In the end, it was like mud. Su-yi didn't care about the muddy water soaking his robe. He retracted all his aura and began to swim in the mud. "Elder, what should we do?" Above, Baizun stopped beside the swamp as a few Origin Emperors rushed over and asked anxiously. "That brat is definitely Su-yi. He can't escape." Baizun's face was gloomy. He did not expect to find Su-yi here, but he was caught off guard and allowed him to escape into the swamp. After pondering for a moment, Baizun said, "You guys go and search for him. Su-yi is just an original Void Realm martial artist. It's more than enough for you to capture him. If that Phoenix bloodline was by his side, he would have to be careful. Now that he's alone, he won't be able to escape. That brat is heading in that direction. Hurry up and catch up." In the end, Baizun pointed in a direction according to the movements detected by his soul power. "Yes, Elder." The few Origin Emperors shouted one after another. Then, one by one, they plunged into the swamp without hesitation. Everyone in the Blood Sun sect knew that Su-yi definitely had great benefits on him. As long as they could capture him, they would definitely receive great rewards from the sect. The most important thing was that the little Phoenix wasn't here. Otherwise, these Origin Emperor Realm experts might encounter an accident if they went down. However, Su-yi was only one person just now. He wouldn't be able to cause too much trouble. "Little bastard, you'll fall into my hands sooner or later," Baizun muttered to himself as he watched the swamp regain its calmness. He activated his soul power and spied on the movements in the swamp. He was ready to take action and capture Su-yi at any time. The remaining people of the Blood Sun sect had also finished their interrogation. Wu Jiyo, Fu Dongxian, and the rest came to Baizun's side. The rogue martial artists and people from small forces were all released. The people of the Blood Sun sect had spread out. Other than Baizun, a few other Origin Emperors were also investigating. "I don't believe that you can hide forever," Baizun sneered. In the depths of the swamp, he slithered like a mud snake and pushed his speed to the limit. The mud behind him churned, and a powerful aura rolled over. It was definitely the pursuers of the Blood Sun sect. "This swamp is too big. I don't know how to really get out of here." Su-yi pondered as he moved forward. The swamp was very vast. When he was above, he couldn't see the end of it. Now, he was at a loss and couldn't tell the direction. In such an environment, it was simply too difficult to escape unscathed. "I have to think of a way to get rid of the few bugs behind me." Su-yi tried his best to restrain his aura as he muttered to himself. He pondered for a while. Then, he suddenly turned around and sneaked in another direction. However, he had just moved when a loud bang came from above him. The entire swamp seemed to be boiling. Obviously, his actions had attracted the attention of Baizun and the others. After all, they were Origin Emperors. Even with the thick swamp as a barrier, they could still detect his location with their soul power. "No, as long as I move, my location will definitely be discovered. It will be difficult to escape." So he kept thinking of a way. Unless he pretended to be a dead person and became one with the swamp, even if he retracted his aura, there would definitely be some movement. However, if he stayed where he was, it would be no different from waiting for death. "Let's get rid of you first," Su-yi thought to himself. His entire body was tightly wrapped in mud. However, a dazzling divine light suddenly appeared in the mud, illuminating a large area around it. He opened the mysterious space, and Su-yi rushed into the blinding light. Why did his aura suddenly disappear? Baizun and the few Origin Emperors above the swamp were surprised. In their senses, Su Yi's aura had completely disappeared. There was also no movement below. Could he be lying in ambush and waiting for an opportunity to launch a sneak attack? Someone said with a cold smile. However, he was relaxed and did not seem nervous at all. Su Yi's cultivation was at the Origin Void Realm. Facing several powerful Origin Emperors, it was impossible for him to resist. Everything was just a futile struggle. Baizun was not anxious at all. He just waited quietly. If Su Yi did not appear for a long time, he would definitely go down and capture him personally. "Boss, what's wrong with you?" The moment Su Yi entered the mysterious space, he attracted Su Xiaoshuai's attention. He immediately rushed to his side and asked, "Su Yi, what happened?" Feng Qi also walked to his side and asked nervously. Chapter 1270. I was discovered by the Blood Sun sect, so I hid under the swamp. Su Yi laughed bitterly. He raised his sleeve to wipe his mouth, but there was more mud on his face. Blood Sun sect. Boss, let me go out and destroy them. Su Xiaoshuai's eyes darkened as he spoke coldly. A few Origin Emperors have caught up. Let's go out together. You can destroy them, but you must do it cleanly. There are still a few Origin Grandmasters eyeing us covetously. We must not fall into their encirclement. Otherwise, only death awaits us. Su Yi spat out a mouthful of mud as he spoke murderously. All right, the Blood Sun sect has provoked us time and time again. Let's go collect some interest first. Su Xiaoshuai flapped his wings as his aura surged with murderous intent. Be careful. Feng Qi reminded them worriedly. Su Yi nodded and waved his hand. Let's go. A man and a bird instantly flew out of the mysterious space and charged into the boundless mud again, rushing in a certain direction. He still can't hide. He finally moved. Above the swamp, a few Origin Grandmasters of the Blood Sun sect sensed the movement and smiled coldly. They could sense the moment Su Yi moved. Even a soul controller like Su Yi could not compare to the strength of an Origin Grandmaster's soul power. Everyone from the Blood Sun sect sneered in their hearts. Su Yi was already a turtle in a jar, and it would be difficult for him to escape this time. Could that brat be injured? He actually slowed down a lot. Suddenly, Baizun spoke with some surprise. After a short period of silence, the movement below was no longer as intense as before. Su Yi's speed of escape was actually much slower than before. In addition, a few other Origin Emperors had already rushed over at this time. Those were the Blood Sun sect's experts. Through the perception of his soul power, Baizun saw that these people were closing in on Su Yi, and a carefree smile appeared on his face. Suddenly, an even stronger aura surged. Although it was blocked by the thick swamp, it still reached his perception. Not good. How can there be another Emperor-level expert's aura? In an instant, Baizun realized that something was wrong. There were a total of 4 experts from the Blood Sun sect who had gone to hunt down Su Yi. But now, there was an additional martial Emperor's aura. This was definitely unusual. Baizun's mind raced as he prepared to dive into the swamp personally. But at this moment, a terrifying, scorching heat suddenly surged out. Huge bubbles rose from the swamp below and exploded one after another. What followed was a cluster of flames burning through the swamp and climbing to the surface of the swamp. Then, under the burning of the terrifying flames, the swamp within a radius of several hundred feet suddenly exploded, filling the sky with mud as if it was raining mud. As a large amount of mud flew out, a huge depression appeared on the surface of the swamp. However, this activity quickly disappeared, and the surrounding mud water once again filled up the depression. However, the hot aura still spread, causing the surroundings to be shrouded in a haze. Damn it! Seeing this, Baizun roared and rushed into the swamp without hesitation. What happened? Many people from the Blood Sun sect were still puzzled and did not know what had happened. Everything happened too suddenly. Logically speaking, Su, you should not have such a powerful cultivation to be able to stir up the swamp. After a moment, Elder Baizun appeared again and answered their questions. In each of his hands, he carried 2 figures. Their bodies were covered in mud, and their faces could not be seen clearly. Only a rough human figure could be seen. At this moment, the four of them were no longer breathing, but their bodies were steaming hot. Walala, a martial artist who cultivated the water attribute, raised his hand and condensed a water curtain. He washed away the mud on the four of them, revealing their original appearances. The four of them were charred black, as if they had been roasted. They were completely dead. It's the Phoenix bloodline. It must be the Phoenix bloodline. He has been hiding on Su-yi. Baizun's eyes were cold as he gritted his teeth and said, he could not think of a second possibility. The deaths of these origin emperors in the fire were definitely not caused by Su-yi. Little bastard, I will make sure you die a horrible death. Baizun said ferociously, his old face twitching. He threw down the four bodies and allowed them to be swallowed by the swamp. One more person to go down. The rest of you, watch his position from above. We must capture that little bastard today. Baizun's face was twisted as he clenched his fists and said. He swung his hand and shook off all the mud on his hand. Because of the isolation of the absolute territory, he returned stealthily. At this moment, there was not a speck of dust on his body. I will go. That brat will not be able to escape. An old man who looked to be in his 50s or 60s walked out. Without saying anything, he rushed into the swamp and disappeared. Baizun and the others once again found out where Su-yi had escaped. In their senses, as long as Su-yi moved, he would not be able to escape. Boss, we can't go on like this. They will definitely send an origin ancestor after us. In the muddy water of the swamp, Su Xiaoshui transmitted his voice. He had taken them by surprise and killed the four origin emperors before continuing to escape with Su-yi. Let's take one step at a time. There will be a way. Zero, Su-yi replied while moving stealthily. The Blood Sun sect was determined to capture him. Along the way, they had interrogated countless people. Their goal was self-evident. Therefore, he could not hope that they would let him go. He had to think of a way out. Since he could not avoid the senses of an origin ancestor, Su-yi did not deliberately conceal his aura. He directly pushed his speed to the maximum and moved quickly in the muddy water. As a bird, Su Xiaoshui was covered in mud and felt indescribably uncomfortable. His speed was of no use here, and it was unlikely that he could fly to the surface and escape with Su-yi. That would make him a live target. Behind them, there was a pressure of space. It was the aura of an origin ancestor, and it was faster than the two of them. Someone is chasing us. Su Xiaoshui said, this is not the outside world. Even an origin ancestor would be greatly restricted. Su-yi transmitted his voice. Not long after, he also sensed that someone was chasing after them. However, he was not particularly worried about this. Moving stealthily in the muddy water would greatly weaken the advantage of controlling space power. Su-yi changed his direction time and time again. Every time the origin ancestor got close, he would use this method to distance himself from him. Boss, do you think we should think of a way to kill that old dog behind us? Su Xiaoshui asked again. Chapter 1271. An origin ancestor was chasing after them. If nothing went wrong, they wouldn't be able to hide for long before they were caught. By now, Su-yi could clearly feel that the aura behind them was getting closer and closer. However, although it was a good idea to trap and kill him, it wasn't easy to carry it out. Su-yi and Handsome Su quickly moved stealthily as they thought of a countermeasure. Along the way, they even bumped into a human corpse. It must have been a vendetta or murder in the chaos territory. We can't shake him off. That old dog is getting closer and closer. Luckily, we're underwater. If we were on the surface, I wouldn't necessarily be afraid of him. A vast pressure pushed away the boundless mud and water, pressing down on Su-yi's soul. If it weren't for the powerful soul force of a soul controller master, as well as the uniqueness of the primordial supreme art, an ordinary person would have already been rendered motionless by this pressure and would have obediently waited for death. Handsome, you guard the mysterious space later. I'll think of a way to deal with that old dog. Su-yi pondered for a long time before he gritted his teeth and said, Handsome Su was powerful, but he couldn't fight with the strong cultivator behind him. Otherwise, he would be heavily surrounded. When that time came, he wouldn't be able to call for help. "Kid, there's no way out for you today." At that moment, an old voice was heard clearly in the muddy water. Sui knew that an origin ancestor had absolute territory power and could push away an independent space, making it difficult for the muddy water to get close to him. Naturally, it wasn't difficult for him to speak. As soon as he finished speaking, a powerful force pressed down on him like a mountain and covered him in the muddy water. Handsome Su hurriedly activated the spiritual power in his body and created a vast light shield to protect himself and Su-e. PFFF. A muffled sound came from the bottom of the water as the muddy water surged. A man and a bird were sent flying by the mighty force. After tumbling for some distance, the two of them finally stabilized themselves. Su-e had suffered quite a bit of shock, but it wasn't a big deal. An origin ancestor's attack would be greatly reduced underwater. Moreover, he had Handsome Su's protection. "Brat, surrender obediently." The origin ancestor expert who had attacked quickly broke through the water and arrived. His entire body was bursting with light that was like a dazzling sun, and his aura was blazing. An independent space of more than 10 feet appeared around him, isolating his body from the muddy water. Even with his eyes closed, Su-e could feel that his eyes were lit up by the light. He simply stopped where he was and stopped running away. "You can take me back, but you have to let my brother go. Otherwise, even if I die, I won't go with you." Su-e transmitted his voice to the origin ancestor. Then, he suddenly panted heavily and could not help but swallow some muddy water. He clutched his chest and pretended to be seriously injured. Beside him, little Handsome Su's aura was also listless, as if he had already been injured. Of course, this was an act they'd put on, and their goal was to make that expert lower his guard. Sure enough, when the Blood Sun sect's old man saw this scene, he couldn't help but sneer. "I thought you were a tough nut to crack. I didn't expect you to have such a day." The old man sneered as he quickly approached. At the same time, he said, "So what if I agree? I guarantee that I will let that phoenix bloodline go." "All right." Su-e nodded without hesitation. After comforting little Handsome Su, he took the initiative to walk towards the origin ancestor expert. Such a scene made the origin ancestor expert feel carefree. If Su-e fell into his hands, he would definitely plunder him first before handing him over to the sect. There were too many benefits on this youth. Even the sacred mountain coveted him. The rapid rise of the Bawang sect must have an indelible relationship with all of this. Under his gaze, Su-e's body moved and quickly entered the range of his absolute domain. The old man relaxed and took the initiative to release the power of his domain, allowing Su-e to enter. I hope that the Blood Sun sect will keep their word. After standing in the absolute domain, Su-e finally opened his eyes and said softly. He continued to walk forward and directly walked to the side of the Blood Sun sect expert. "Kid, you've already entered my absolute domain. Everything is no longer up to you." The old man sneered and suddenly waved his hand. A stream of silk was shot out and turned into a restriction. It was about to land on Su-e's body. However, at that moment, a dazzling light suddenly flashed and enveloped him and Su-e's bodies at the same time. The old man realized that something was wrong. The aura of the light was too strange. He wanted to withdraw and escape, but it was already too late. In the next instant, an independent space appeared before his eyes. It stretched as far as the eye could see and was unimaginably huge. In this space, waves of spiritual energy rippled as if they were solid. Not far away, there was a medicinal field with stalks of spiritual herbs planted in it. Moreover, the figure of a young girl stood up from her cross-legged position and looked over. The old man turned pale with fright. He instantly understood that this was an independent space. It was like a world that existed alone and was completely isolated from the outside world. A treasure. A treasure. At that moment, the old man was indescribably excited and his lips trembled. This was definitely a treasure that he had never seen or heard of before. He didn't know why Su-e had such a treasure on him, but it was no longer important. The old man thought that he must find a way to get this treasure. Old dog, it's too early for you to be excited. These words came out of Su Yi's mouth. Then he rushed forward and attacked the old man from the Blood Sun sect. Humph! Little bastard, how dare you be so arrogant in front of me? From today onwards, this treasure belongs to me. The old man sneered. His space domain suddenly expanded and instantly confined Su Yi's body. However, his body that was moving forward suddenly stopped abruptly. He looked coldly at the young man who was like a clay figurine, and his heart was filled with excitement. However, all of a sudden, there was a loud rumble. A bolt of lightning that was thicker than a mountain appeared in the sky. It was as if 100,000 mountains had collapsed and crashed violently onto the old man's body. The lightning was fierce and bright like a divine punishment. It was oppressive and powerful. Even an origin ancestor seemed extremely small in front of this lightning. When the lightning struck his body, the old man's spine let out a series of crisp sounds. His waist bent and almost broke. The powerful absolute power of the space domain also disintegrated in an instant. Su immediately escaped. The old man's hair and beard stood on end as he let out a miserable scream. The power of thunder was released, and a terrifying light pillar exploded. All of the energy poured into the old man's body. Strands of terrifying arcs of lightning shot out, and in the end, his entire body was blasted to the ground. He lay there like a pile of mud, and he didn't move at all and was on the verge of death. Old dog, now you know who's the arrogant one. Chapter 1272. As he spoke, Su Yi took out a broadsword from his space bag without hesitation, infused it with primordial chi, and slashed it down. Huffed, the old man's head fell to the ground, and blood gushed out like a fountain. Su Yi was delighted to see the origin ancestor killed on the spot. He had no mercy when it came to the people of the Blood Sun sect, as he was worried that it would be difficult to kill an origin ancestor quickly with an ordinary sword. He had taken out the starry sky and killed him with his sacred weapon. Su Yi, are you all right? Feng Qi saw everything. Her beautiful face paled as she became worried. We're fine now. Su Yi shook his head. I'll go out first. We'll talk later. He didn't waste any time. After putting away the starry sky, he walked out of the mysterious space and met up with Handsome Su. Boss, is it done? Handsome Su asked through telepathy when he saw the light of the mysterious space dissipate. It's done. Sui nodded and said anxiously, let's go quickly. Once the people of the Blood Sun sect realize that something is wrong, they might send more people to surround us. It'll be more troublesome then. He frowned and continued to flee with Handsome Su. When he had subdued the Beast Emperor, he had realized that the mysterious space had the ability to protect its owner. As long as someone attacked in the mysterious space, it would automatically activate the power of the mysterious space to suppress them. The poor old man didn't know this and lost his life. After this, he had a new idea. It would be good if he could use the same method to deal with powerful enemies in the future. However, he didn't dare to use it casually. At the very least, he couldn't expose the existence of the mysterious space to the public. That was the premise. The only thing he didn't know was the upper limit of the mysterious space. Something's wrong. Why did Elder use Aura disappear? Above the swamp, Baizun and the others followed Su Yi's escape route. They had also sensed that Su Yi, little handsome Su, and their elder had stopped. There was no movement, but at this moment, there were clearly two life forms moving below. However, it was clearly not Elder Yu. It should be known that Elder Yu was at the origin ancestor stage. If he did not deliberately conceal his aura, it would be difficult for them not to notice him wherever he went. Now, there were only two weak ripples that matched Su Yi's and Su Shuai's. What's going on? Why aren't there any fluctuations coming from Elder Yu? The other people from the Blood Sun sect were also frowning and thinking hard. They didn't know what had happened. All of this was very strange. It wasn't like the previous death of the 4 origin emperors, where there was still a huge wave of attack. It was as if Elder Yu had disappeared without a trace. It couldn't be that he had deliberately hidden himself. Why don't I go down and take a look again? At this moment, another Yuan Zone powerhouse spoke up and said, X-Head, send 0D hashtag wait. Baizun stretched out his hand and stopped him. There must be something strange here. It might be related to that kid. It's better to be careful. His heart suddenly thumped a few times. He only felt that the situation was very strange. He had brought too many surprises to the world. If Elder Yu had already died in that kid's hands, this idea was very bold, but Baizun felt that it wasn't impossible. Elder Bai, what should we do? An Origin Emperor from the Blood Sun sect asked. I will stay up here and follow. The remaining Yuan Zong experts will go down and capture that kid. When you go down, check on Elder Yu's condition first. If there's anything strange, report it immediately. Baizun frowned and pondered for a long time before saying this. Yes. When the surrounding people heard this, they all plunged into the swamp below without saying anything else. There were many experts from the Blood Sun sect who had come here. Besides Baizun and Elder Yu, there were 3 other Yuan Zong experts here. The 3 of them disappeared from sight in an instant. For martial artists with average cultivation, it was very difficult to detect their movements. A puny Yuan Void Realm and a Demon Emperor. We can't possibly let them escape here. Baizun's face was cold as he spoke fiercely. Following the feedback from his soul power, he continued to lead the group and follow closely. However, there was still a vague feeling of unease in his heart. Not long after, one of the 3 Yuan Zong experts who had gone down walked out of the swamp again and brought back a piece of news that made Baizun feel even more uneasy. We are about to catch up with Su Yi and will soon form an encirclement. However, we did not see Elder Yu's figure along the way. There are also no suspicious traces left behind. The exact situation is unknown. After the Yuan Zong expert reported the situation, he continued to dive into the swamp. Everyone from the Blood Sun sect felt as if 1,000 pounds were hanging on their hearts. We must capture that kid in order to know everything. Baizun clenched his fists tightly as murderous intent flashed in his eyes. He used all his strength to sense. Even though the swamp obstructed him and he could not see it with his own eyes, he could clearly sense that the 3 Yuan Zong experts from the Blood Sun sect had already formed a fan shape and were surrounding the 2 auras. This time, it's really troublesome. In the muddy water, Su Yi's heart was extremely nervous. The 3 powerful auras around him had locked onto him. As long as he moved, he would not be able to escape the other party's detection. Needless to say, the 3 of them were Yuan Zong experts. Furthermore, they were coming from 3 different directions, blocking his way forward. Boss, why don't I lure them away and then think of a way to escape? You stay here and don't move. Meet me when it's safe. Handsome Su sent a voice transmission to Su Yi. No, this is too dangerous. Su Yi shook his head and rejected Handsome Su's suggestion. He kept thinking of countermeasures, but could not come up with any good ideas. This was really troublesome. The situation was very serious. If he did not deal with it carefully, he might die here. Let's continue diving. If there's really no other way, we'll hide in the mysterious space. He gritted his teeth and made such a decision. The mysterious space could only be used as a last resort. Once he entered it, it would be equivalent to cutting off all his escape routes. He could deal with outsiders if they entered. However, if the Blood Sun sect was waiting for him, there was nothing he could do. After all, he could not just hole up and not come out. This swamp was unknown how deep it was. He estimated that he had already dived hundreds of feet deep this time. However, he still had not reached the bottom. He had no choice but to continue down with Handsome Su. Chapter 1273. He was slightly surprised by the feeling he got from the soles of his feet. Did I touch the bottom? He muttered to himself. This hard object wasn't actually that hard. With a little bit of force, it felt a little soft. Yeah, this is, Su Xiaoshui suddenly exclaimed in surprise. Using his soul power, he discovered something unusual. This is not the bottom. He also quickly found that the object under his feet was not soil, but the back of a barbaric beast. However, this barbaric beast seemed to be in a deep sleep. All of its chi had disappeared, as if it was dead. However, upon closer inspection, he found that there was a very weak fluctuation of vitality in the body of this barbaric beast. It could not be seen with the naked eye, but at such a close distance, He could clearly feel that this was a giant crocodile in a state of suspended animation. A sleeping crocodile. It seems to be the mysterious ice dragon crocodile. Great! He was pleasantly surprised as he exclaimed, "So what if it's just a mysterious ice dragon crocodile? It can't help us deal with those people from the Blood Sun sect." Su Xiaoshui was puzzled. He did not understand why Yi was so surprised. Tianyuan is really a dead end. I have a way to lure those people away. Xiaoshui, hide all of your qi and don't make any noise. Yi called out, and then placed his palm on the back of the mysterious ice dragon crocodile. Vigorous primordial qi flowed from his palm into the body of the mysterious ice dragon crocodile like water. Whoosh, whoosh, under the effect of the primordial qi, the giant crocodile under his feet suddenly moved. It originally wanted to flip over and shake off Yi. However, in the next moment, a terrifying pressure suddenly appeared. It was as if a supreme being had descended and suppressed the mysterious ice dragon crocodile. Submit to me, then hide all of your qi and only swim in the water. Hurry up and leave this place. Remember, no matter what happens along the way, you only need to keep running. The farther you are from here, the better. If someone is chasing you, do your best to shake them off. Yi's primordial supreme art revolved rapidly, and a terrifying aura surged out. It was as if a god was speaking. Under this pressure, the profound ice dragon crocodile didn't dare to move, let alone make any sound. When Yi withdrew the power of the primordial chaos supreme art, it was still terrified of the human on its back. "Go!" Yi said again. The mysterious ice dragon armor crocodile felt as if it had been granted amnesty and quickly fled. Just as Yi had instructed, it didn't reveal any aura. Yi heaved a sigh of relief when he saw this. He and Little Handsome Su had concealed all of their qi and stayed still in the muddy water. However, his soul strength was constantly spying on the movements around him. The man and the bird were like petrified dead objects, continuously sinking into the muddy water. This was not intentional, but natural. Fortunately, the three powerful auras were really chasing after the mysterious ice dragon armor crocodile at this time. Not long after, all of the auras disappeared from Yi, and Little Handsome Su's perception. However, they didn't immediately move or rush out of the swamp. Instead, they stayed in the same place for a long time. Yi silently calculated the time in his heart. After about the time it took for an incense stick to burn, he and Little Handsome Su continued to travel a long distance. Then, they stopped again and remained silent for a long time. Yi had to be cautious. The mysterious ice dragon armor crocodile was quite powerful and had already reached the demon royal realm. However, under the encirclement of the three origin grandmasters, it definitely wouldn't be able to escape far before it was surrounded. Once they realized something was wrong, the people of the Blood Sun sect would definitely return to look for it. Therefore, Yi, and Little Handsome Su fell silent for the second time to avoid being noticed. The reality was almost as he had expected. After chasing for dozens of miles, the three origin grandmasters really surrounded the mysterious ice dragon armor crocodile. At the same time, they also realized that they had fallen into a trap. After reporting the situation to Baizun, the people of the Blood Sun sect turned back to look for Yi, and Little Handsome Su again. However, they didn't find anything. Even the last traces of the man and the bird were gone. Bastard! Baizun flew into a rage when faced with such a situation. He struck out with his palm and directly opened up a large swamp that was dozens of feet deep. A large amount of muddy water surged up and rolled up into the sky. "We must find Yi. I want to peel off his skin inch by inch." Baizun roared furiously. The other three Origin Grandmasters were also furious. They had really miscalculated this time. Not only did they not catch the young man, but they also lost 4 Origin Emperors. In addition, the whereabouts of the other Origin Grandmaster were unknown. No one knew whether he was dead or alive. However, the biggest possibility was that he had already died. When they thought of this, everyone in the Blood Sun sect felt gloomy. Wu Jiuyo and Fu Dongxian, the 2 most outstanding disciples of the younger generation, had a deeper impression of the young man. As young people who were almost a generation older than Su Yi, they knew that if they were in the same situation, they would have no chance of surviving. They could only wait to be captured, and even death would be an extravagant hope. This was especially true for Wu Jiuyo. He had crossed paths with Su Yi in the secret realm of ominous spirits. At that time, he had been hunted down like a stray dog. He hadn't even been able to enter the Nirvana Dragon platform. Now Fu Dongxian had surpassed him in terms of strength. Looking at it this way, the gap between him and Su Yi was getting even bigger. Announce a reward in the name of the Blood Sun sect. Anyone who provides accurate information about Su Yi will be rewarded with 1,000,000 3-star Origin Stones. These words came out of Baizun's mouth, but they were filled with an extremely sinister intent. There were many martial artists gathered near the swamp. There were a large number of itinerant martial artists and countless people from small forces. The 9 major forces were all gathered there as well. Once the reward was announced, word of it spread quickly and everyone knew about it. 1,000,000 3-star Origin Stones was definitely a sky-high reward that could make everyone go crazy. Not only the countless small forces and itinerant martial artists, but even for second-rate forces, such a number was no small matter. Just hearing this number made many people's eyes turn red. 1,000,000 3-star Origin Stones is really too tempting. However, these treasures aren't so easy to obtain. Some of the calmer people exclaimed, but they also realized that these Origin Stones were extremely difficult to obtain. Putting aside whether or not the Blood Sun sect would renege on their dead after this, Su Yi alone was definitely a difficult person to deal with. If ordinary martial artists encountered him, once there was friction, it was hard to say whether they could survive. If he knew that they had betrayed his whereabouts, the Bolong sect might hunt them down to their deaths. Chapter 1274. However, there was no lack of people in this world who would take risks for absolute benefits. If there weren't any, then it must be because the benefits weren't attractive enough. 1,000,000 3-star Origin Stones was the best stimulant that could make countless people gamble with their lives, including those who lived on the edge of a knife all year round. Of course, the premise of all this was that they could really find Su Yi's traces. At this moment, Su Yi and Su Xiaoshui had already gone off to some unknown place after changing directions a few times. They were very cautious, moving very carefully under the swamp, and only after a long time did they pop their heads out. There's no one around. You can come out now. When they realized that there was no one around, the 2 of them jumped out at the same time. Little handsome Su shook his body hard and got rid of all the mud on his body. Su used the power of the water attribute to remove all the stains on his body. "Boss, are you okay?" Handsome Su asked. "I'm fine." Su shook his head. He had been shaken up previously, but he was fine now. Sweeping his gaze across the surroundings, all he saw was still a boundless swamp. He didn't know where the end was. The Blood Sun sect has lost an Origin Ancestor and 4 Origin Emperors this time. They definitely won't let this matter rest. We have to be careful. So, handsome, you should enter the mysterious space. I'll continue to disguise myself. Sui thought about it and said, the Blood Sun sect had originally wanted to capture him. Now that they had suffered a huge loss, they wouldn't show any mercy. Therefore, they had to be careful. In fact, Su Yi felt that it was a pity. If the 3 Origin Ancestor had come separately, he could have used the same method to kill them one by one. It could be seen that Baizun and the others were still very cautious because of the inexplicable disappearance of an elite. "Boss, why don't I stay in your arms? If anything happens, I can help in time," handsome Su said. Sui thought about it for a while before nodding in agreement. Handsome Su shouldn't make any mistakes at such a time. The situation of that secret realm is still very vague. I don't know when it will truly appear. Su immediately recalled that he had come here mainly to search for the secret realm. However, he had not found anything so far. Boss, I can vaguely sense some energy fluctuations. I wonder if it has anything to do with that secret realm. Suddenly, Handsome Su tilted his head to one side and said these words. Energy fluctuations? Su raised his eyebrows, but he didn't find it strange. It was only because Su Xiaoshui had the Phoenix bloodline that it was understandable that he could sense some special existences. Actually, I also feel it. It seems that after coming to this swamp, there's a warm current flowing in my body, and my cultivation method is circulating faster. Su slowly said. This was not an illusion. Originally, when he had just stepped into the swamp, everything was not obvious. But this time, when he came out of the muddy water again, he could feel some obscure power. However, it was not obvious, and there was no direction to speak of. Boss, I think this must be related to that secret realm. Let's hurry and find it, Handsome Su said again. Hearing this, Su nodded and then didn't say anything more. He directly stuffed Handsome Su into his arms, leaving only his head out. He used the disguise technique again and changed into the appearance of a man in his 30s. He randomly chose a direction and began to fly along the swamp. The secret realm had appeared in the surroundings, but Su didn't know where exactly he was at this time. He could only walk in a general direction. Just as he and Handsome Su continued on their journey and began to explore the secret realm, there were exclamations all over the swamp. The news of the Blood Sun sect's reward spread like wildfire, shocking many itinerant cultivators and people from small forces. In addition, the Ash Cloud Palace, 9 Stars Valley, and other major forces also received the news, and each showed a different attitude. That young man, Su, he also came here? Elder Xia seems to value him a lot. Since that's the case, let's find him while we're at it. When the time comes, we'll protect him appropriately. A middle-aged man was in the Ash Cloud Palace's lineup. Many disciples followed him, including Qin Yusheng, Shi Su, and others who Sui knew. However, this time, Elder Xia was not in the crowd. The people of the Ash Cloud Palace did not have any ill feelings towards Sui. Therefore, under the premise that Elder Xia valued him greatly, they were still willing to help the young man. Of course, this did not include Shi Su. For this woman, when that name was mentioned, she unconsciously frowned and resentment filled the sky. However, in front of so many people, she could only secretly grit her teeth. In another place in the swamp, the people of 9 Stars Valley gathered. Tang Wang, Tao Yunda, Dong Chongqing, Jing Charan, Chao Yunfei, and others were all present. Moreover, when Tang Wang returned to 9 Stars Valley, Elder Nya, who played chess with the Valley Master, was also with him. The Blood Sun sect actually issued a bounty of 1 million 3-star origin stones. Could it be that they suffered a great loss at the hands of Sui? Tao Yuenda and Elder Tao were shocked and said in shock, I'm afraid it's not fake. Based on the Blood Sun sect style, they must be flustered and exasperated to do this. I just don't know what kind of loss they suffered. Dong Chongqing smiled slightly. It was obvious that he was rejoicing in their misfortune. On the other hand, Elder Tang Wang kept grinning. In his heart, he looked at Sui in a new light again. If we can meet that Sui, we will definitely take action and bring him back to the valley. I hope that this time, Elder Tang will not be muddle-headed, in case the Valley Master blames him. Suddenly, Elder Nya said from the crowd. As he spoke, he unconsciously glanced at Tao Yuenda and Dong Chongqing. The Valley Master was already very dissatisfied with their previous loss and wanted the two of them to guard the Thunder Valley for 100 years. The punishment was extremely heavy. However, in order to not affect the investigation of the secret realm, the two of them had not been informed of this news. Why does the Valley Master have to be hostile towards that young man? Does our 9 Stars Valley have to be the same as the Blood Sun sect? Do we have to resort to trickery and force to be satisfied? The smile on Tang Wang's face quickly disappeared as he asked in a deep voice. Elder Tang, it's better to ask the Valley Master about this question. I can't answer you. Elder Nye retracted his gaze and said softly as if this matter had nothing to do with him. Humph. Tang Wang was very dissatisfied. He snorted coldly but did not say anything. The two elders, Tao Yuanda and Dong Changqing, looked troubled. They did not know what to do. Chapter 1275. Let's continue searching for the mystery realm. After a while, Elder Nye said again. The people of Nine Stars Valley did not say much, including Jing Charan and Chao Yunfei. Although they looked embarrassed, they still followed the instructions and continued searching for information about the mystery realm. The vast swamp was vast and boundless, and one could not see the end of it. Moreover, countless people were flying in the sky. Even with the powerful eyesight of cultivators, it was difficult for them to see each other. This showed how vast the swamp was. He carried Su Xiaoshui in his arms and walked alone. Soon, he came into contact with some rogue cultivators. The Blood Sun sect really put in a lot of effort. 1,000,000 3-star primordial stones just to find my whereabouts. After learning about the reward issued by the Blood Sun sect, Su-yi was stunned and surprised. However, Su-yi felt that not many people would dare to take this reward. The Blood Sun sect was not an easy force to deal with. 3 first-rate forces and 6 second-rate forces sure are quick to act. In addition to the previous news, Su-yi learned that the place where the mystery realm had caused a commotion was now occupied by the 9 forces. That area was sealed off, and many rogue cultivators and people from small forces were blocked outside. It was difficult for them to get close. However, even so, there were still countless people gathering there. Let's go and see the situation. Su-yi did not think too much and walked in the direction of the news. Sure enough, after a day, there were more and more people around him, and they were all heading in that direction. Needless to say, that must be the place sealed off by the 9 forces. That's a lake. As he got closer, Su-yi found that the swamp below was getting clearer and clearer. It was not as dirty as before. In the end, there was a clear and beautiful body of water in front of him. It was also boundless. The body of water and the huge swamp seemed to be 2 distinct places. The clear and turbid were different. On the surface of the vast lake, there was not a single ripple. Even when the wind blew, it was still flat. Su-yi flew to the surface of the lake and looked down. It was as if he was standing on a mirror, and he could see his own reflection clearly. A wisp of vital qi surged out from his finger and struck the surface of the lake, making a soft pop sound. The finger force was instantly swallowed by the surface of the lake without causing any ripples. It was very strange. This lake water is very strange. Su-yi's eyes flashed. He felt that there was something unusual about this lake. It said that this lake didn't exist in the first place. It was just a swamp like the other side, nothing special about it. However, after the commotion in the secret realm, the turbid mud gradually sank and soon turned into a large lake. While Su-yi was still in shock, he heard the discussion of several people in the distance. This caused him to involuntarily raise his eyebrows. It was actually such a strange thing. Let's go take a look. Su-yi pondered for a moment and then continued on his way, passing through a large number of people along the way. At the front, it must be the area sealed off by the 9 major forces. After another 2 to 4 hours, the crowd became denser. Su even saw some familiar figures that he had seen at the Alliance conference. He wasn't familiar with these people, so he didn't greet them. Everyone stop, or we'll kill without mercy. Just as Su-yi was approaching, a loud voice came from the front. Raising their eyes, they saw a large number of people forming a long line in front of the crowd. It was as if a wall had been formed on the flat surface of the lake, blocking the advance of countless people. The secret realm is an ownerless object. Why can only the 9 major forces explore it? That's right, let us in. Such shouts could be heard everywhere, but very few people dared to step forward. Countless small forces and rogue cultivators in the Chaos region were filled with resentment, but they didn't dare to say anything. A rogue cultivator at the initial stage of the Origin Emperor realm tried to break through the blockade, but in a flash, an expert stepped out and killed him in one move. His corpse fell onto the lake's surface, not even causing a bubble. They must have found something here. In Suyi's arms, Su Xiaoshui secretly poked his head out and said softly. Su Yi pressed him back, his eyes shining. Of course, he could see that the 9 major forces must have found something here. It must be in this area. Otherwise, with the lake's surface being so vast, no matter how many people they had, they couldn't stop countless rogue cultivators and small forces. Let's see the situation first. Su Yi didn't intend to act rashly. He mixed in with the rogue cultivators with a fake identity and didn't reveal himself. Facing a secret realm that might appear, it was very surprising that the 9 major forces would join forces. Otherwise, with the relationship between the major forces in the Chaos region, it was very difficult for them to work together peacefully. However, Su Yi knew that they had joined forces to obtain greater benefits. If they were scattered, many rogue cultivators and small forces would rush over and snatch away many opportunities. I didn't expect so many people to come. Su Yi looked at the situation in front of him and saw some familiar figures among the 9 major forces. Sang Ming of the Dark-Yin Gate, Yin Shangyuan of the Red Sun Sect, Shang Wanchun of the Boundless Palace, Shui Yuechan of the Purple Shadow Tower, Wei Changtian of the Green Flame Sect, and so on. In addition, there were also Qin Yuxing, Shi Su Su, Jing Qiran, and Xiao Yunfei. After probing with his soul power, he found that these people's auras had greatly improved since the Alliance Conference. For example, Sang Ming, Shang Wanchun, and Shui Yuechan had all entered the original Void Realm. They were very powerful. Qin Yuxing, Shi Su Su, and Jing Qiran were all in the original Void Realm. Their auras were as deep as the abyss. Without leaving any traces, even Su Yi couldn't easily see through their foundation. Boss, I can feel that the energy fluctuation is a little stronger than before, Su Xiaoshui said in his arms. Su Yi nodded. He also had the same feeling. More importantly, the Origin Supreme technique in his body had unconsciously circulated and its speed had increased by a lot. This was something that had never happened before. Such a situation made Su Yi fall into deep thought. The Origin Supreme technique had a mysterious origin. It couldn't have changed for no reason. That secret realm might really be here. Su Yi murmured to himself. The Origin Supreme technique had changed, and Su Xiaoshui had also felt an inexplicable power. That secret realm might really be nearby. However, he didn't know what kind of discovery the 9 major forces had made in the area surrounded by them. Su Yi was looking around. He wanted to see if Elder Xie and the others of the Blue Cloud Palace were there. If they could, he could consider showing his face and get more information. At the same time, he could also avoid trouble from the Blood Sun sect. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Chapter 1276. As soon as the fluctuation appeared, it caused a terrifying tremor. Even the space shook as the mighty force boiled. It was as if an invisible giant hand had appeared and grabbed the entire space, causing it to shake violently. The cultivators who were able to make it here were all extraordinary cultivators. They had at least reached the Yuan Jin stage. There were also countless Yuan Void Stage and Yuan Void Stage cultivators. However, under the fluctuation, all of these cultivators could not stand steadily and almost fell. What happened? Someone exclaimed and tried to stabilize his body. However, there was no external force around him to rely on. He swayed left and right like an ordinary person in a terrifying earthquake. The secret realm. There must be something happening in the secret realm again. Someone shouted, voicing out such a speculation. As soon as this was said, countless people's spirits were lifted. The 2 words secret realm affected everyone's heart. Clang! Finally, there were still people with weaker cultivations who could not withstand the violent fluctuation. Amidst the monstrous buzzing sound, they fell and smashed into the lake. Strangely, after these people fell, they were directly swallowed by the surface of the water and disappeared without a trace. No matter how much they cried and struggled, it was useless. This lake is too strange. Seeing such a scene, Su Yi's scalp tingled. The lake had been calm. Even under such a huge tremor, there was not the slightest ripple. However, looking at it now, it was like the giant mouth of a demon king. Anyone who touched it would be swallowed. No one knew if they could make out alive. Buzz, 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 the violent fluctuations spread out and the space was distorted. Everyone rushed to the sky, tried to get as far away from the lake as possible. Su Yi did the same. However, at the same time, he was still observing his surroundings. In front of him, he saw a dazzling light rising from the lake. It was as if an immeasurable scorching sun was shining in front of his eyes. It was so bright that he could not open his eyes. The vast buzzing sound was accompanied by the light. Su Yi circulated the Origin Supreme technique in his body to the extreme. Only then did his chi and blood knot roil endlessly. He narrowed his eyes and saw that there were clouds of bloody mist and all kinds of mysterious power within the light. Under the illumination of that terrifying aura, his body and soul felt as if they had been pierced, and a terrifying power was wantonly shuttling through his body. What a terrifying aura! Su Yi was stunned. Even handsome Su poked his head out of Su Yi's arms. Compared to the boundless sun, the two of them were like mayflies in front of a large tree, extremely insignificant. "Save me! Save me!" Suddenly, someone shouted loudly, carrying an endless feeling of fear. Under the illumination of the terrifying light, some of the people who were closer but had lower cultivation levels suddenly felt as if their bodies were pierced by invisible chi. The thin and long light rays pierced their bodies from the front and came out from the back. Then, their entire bodies turned into light and disappeared. "Run! Run!" The countless figures that were rushing towards the secret realm began to panic like stray dogs. They fled madly in the direction they came from. However, no matter how fast these people were, they could not be faster than the illumination of the light. They were all enveloped within. "Run!" Violent roars came from the vicinity of the light, mixed with vast primordial chi and the power of space. In an instant, they wrapped around the figures and left. These were the Origin Grandmasters of the 3 first-rate forces and the 6 second-rate forces. They were making a move to escape with their disciples. "We can't escape." Su Yi had already run back, but as he ran, the corners of his mouth rose into a bitter smile. He lowered his head and looked at his chest. Rays of light shot out from his back and came out from his front. Very quickly, he became a transparent person and disappeared in an instant. "Boss!" However, handsome Su was unharmed. He flapped his wings and flew up. Blazing flames involuntarily surged from his body and gathered into an independent space. Only then did he avoid being pierced by the light. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Terrifying fluctuations surged, setting off an invisible space tide that instantly pressed down. Countless experts gathered here, turned into nothingness under the illumination of the light not far away, disappearing from where they stood. "Boss!" Handsome Su's eyes immediately turned red. He had not expected the light to be so terrifying, and he was filled with regret. If he had made a move earlier to protect his boss, he would have been fine. "Run!" Many Origin Grandmasters of the Green Cloud Palace, 9-Star Valley, Blood Sun Sect, and other forces shouted as they fled with their disciples. Around the figures, the power of space surged ferociously. With a sweep of their bodies, they covered hundreds of feet and quickly left the area. Other than these people, all the other martial artists who were not protected by the absolute space domain disintegrated and disappeared. "Boss!" Handsome Su's eyes were filled with tears. As he sobbed, he followed the crowd and left, looking back 3 times with every step. However, his speed did not decrease at all. After they were dozens of miles away, all the power suddenly disappeared, and the bright light also suddenly dissipated. Everyone looked back and saw a blood-red color appear on the surface of the lake. The originally clear lake water was now crimson red like a sea of blood. Violent waves surged, surging up to the nine heavens. The scarlet red water covered the sky and the sun. At the same time, a terrifying bloody and fiendish aura spread out. The sea of blood seemed to be formed by the blood of living beings. It was surging and overflowing. Elder, many of our senior brothers have disappeared. Among the crowd that had escaped, someone spoke in a panic with a sobbing tone. Quickly count the number of people and see how many have disappeared. A middle-aged man from the Green Cloud Palace said in a deep voice. He was incomparably solemn. As his voice sounded, the other forces also began to count the number of people. This count was not important, but the result made everyone's hearts feel as heavy as a 1,000-kilogram boulder. In order to explore this secret realm, the various forces had sent out a large number of experts. Other than the Origin Grandmasters, there were also many Origin Emperors and Origin Void Realm experts. However, at this moment, other than a small number of people who had successfully escaped due to the protection of the absolute space domain of the Origin Grandmasters, the rest had all disappeared. Sure, Susu has disappeared. Jing Shiran and Chao Yunfei have also disappeared. Wu Jio has also not been rescued. Among the various forces, the most outstanding disciples of the younger generation had also disappeared. Needless to say, they had all disappeared in the previous battle. Such an outcome made the faces of the various Origin Grandmasters turn pale. Many of the people who had disappeared were the future of their sections. They had hopes of inheriting the sect and taking charge of the sect in the future. In fact, the disappearance of the people from the three great forces was not considered much. Many small forces and unaffiliated martial artists had been completely wiped out. Not a single one of them had escaped. Chapter 1277. The situation was too strange and incomprehensible. Are they all dead? What should we do? Some of the weaker disciples began to panic as their bodies trembled. Don't panic. They might not necessarily be dead. Suddenly, the middle-aged man from the Green Cloud Hall spoke. He frowned and said softly, "The light just now was unable to pierce through the power of space. Perhaps it was a kind of power of space itself. Perhaps they have gone to another space." As soon as these words were spoken, the scene immediately became quiet as everyone fell into deep thought. Previously, the situation had been urgent, and everyone had fled in panic. They had not thought much about it. Now that the middle-aged man had spoken, the group of Origin Ancestor Realm experts pondered for a moment and felt that this speculation was very reasonable. The light seemed to have the ability to pierce through everything, causing the bodies of all the cultivators to be pierced through. However, their absolute space power was able to withstand it, and they even managed to bring many people away. Perhaps this was the truth. The people who had disappeared had directly entered another place. Is that really the case? If that's the case, won't we miss out on a huge opportunity? Suddenly, another person said suspiciously, with a hint of pity in his voice. However, these words attracted the gazes of the crowd as if they were looking at an idiot. Even if they have entered another space, given the cultivation of those people, I'm afraid that they will face extremely terrifying challenges. This secret realm is probably much more terrifying than we imagined. An old man spoke. That's right. The scene immediately fell into silence. Everyone had rushed to the secret realm, but even if the secret realm really opened, they would definitely not rush in. They could only let the true powerhouses investigate. In fact, they would even need to invite those existences who had been in seclusion for countless years in order to truly investigate. When that happened, it would be time to send out a large number of people to search. Of course, this was only the way to do it under normal circumstances. If the secret realm was ordinary, everyone could enter on the spot to investigate. This was also the reason why the various large factions had stopped countless wandering cultivators and small factions. Based on the previous lineup, it was very obvious that this secret realm was extraordinary. Those who had disappeared would probably face unimaginable trouble. Retreat 100 miles away and wait. If they are lucky, they will walk out. The middle-aged man from the Blue Cloud Hall finally said. Following his order, the people from the Blue Cloud Hall began to walk away. He turned around and looked behind him. The sea of blood was surging, and the waves were hundreds of feet high. Vaguely, he seemed to be able to hear the wails of living beings and the cries of ghosts. Go! The rest of the people didn't want to stay any longer and didn't dare to stay any longer. However, just as they were about to move, someone suddenly exclaimed and pointed in another direction. Over there were two figures standing in the distance, and they seemed to be looking back. Origin Ancestor! The middle-aged man from the Green Cloud Hall raised his eyebrows. He could sense that the spatial power surrounding the two was undoubtedly at the Origin Ancestor realm. However, they seemed to be deliberately hiding something. Their faces were hidden under the hood of their robes. Their true faces could not be seen, and it was unknown who they were. The Chaos region is full of hidden dragons and crouching tigers. It's normal for there to be two Origin Grandmasters, right? Over at the Nine Stars Valley, Tang Wang said softly. However, Tao Yuan, Dong Changqing, and Elder Nyal knew that it was definitely abnormal for two Origin Ancestor realms to appear in the Chaos region at the same time. However, no one was in the mood to investigate. They just didn't know if the two were nearby. While everyone was staring, the two people in the distance were also looking over. The Chosen is missing. What should we do? Under the hood of the robe, an old voice sounded. Only the other person beside him heard it. It must be because of the secret realm. We can only wait here for now. Otherwise, we will not be able to answer to the sacred sovereign when we return to the sacred mountain. Another old voice sounded. The other person was silent when he heard this. After finding a direction, he left the vicinity. The people from the Chaos region didn't say anything as they watched the two leave. However, their target was now in another place. Look, isn't that the Phoenix bloodline that follows Su-E? Someone exclaimed and pointed at little handsome Su, who was flapping his wings. It really is him. Not many people had seen little handsome Su before. However, many people in the Chaos region had heard of his deeds, so they recognized him immediately. Sui must have come here too. I'm afraid that he has been swallowed by the secret realm. Regardless of whether he can come out or not, the Blood Sun sect will get some interest from this Phoenix bloodline first. Baizun said coldly when he saw handsome Su. His eyes darkened. Immediately after, several figures flew out and surrounded little handsome Su at the same time. In the swamp, the Blood Sun sect had lost 4 Origin Emperors and 1 Origin Ancestor realm. They didn't know whether he was dead or alive. However, they still didn't know how Su-E had done it. This made Baizun hate Su-E and little handsome Su. He had to give the sect an explanation. Little handsome Su, is it? Just as the people of the Blood Sun sect were moving, the leading middle-aged man from the Blue Cloud Palace took a step in the void and crossed dozens of feet in one step. After a few more steps, he stopped in front of the people of the Blood Sun sect. Hu Kuan, are you trying to stop the Blood Sun sect? Baizun shouted when his path was blocked. However, the middle-aged man ignored him and forced a smile at little handsome Su. Come to the Blue Cloud Palace. Let's wait for Su-E to come out together. Little handsome Su looked at him cautiously and didn't agree immediately. His eyes were red. Hu Kuan, no matter what, I have to capture this Phoenix bloodline. If you stop me, you will become an enemy of the Blood Sun sect. Seeing that Hu Kuan ignored him, Baizun's old face immediately turned red. He shouted with a ferocious expression. Umph. Hearing this, Hu Kuan abruptly flung his sleeves. An invisible aura surged out from his sleeves like a thunderclap, rolling like a tide with a great momentum. Baizun, don't use the Blood Sun sect to pressure me. Could it be that my Blue Cloud Hall is afraid? I will protect this little bird today. A domineering aura emanated from his body, like a surging river or a surging river. Little guy, come here. The Blood Sun sect won't dare to do anything to you. Another person from the Blood Sun sect walked out and waved at little handsome Su. Little handsome Su hesitated for a moment and finally flapped his wings and landed on the person's shoulder. This person had witnessed the great battle in the mine with Elder Xie and had stayed in the Bawang sect for a long time. Little Handsome, Su was familiar with him. Bastards of the Blood Sun sect. One day, I'll burn your sect to the ground. Chapter 1278. Baizun was enraged. The power of his absolute territory was like an invisible prison that surged towards Su Xiaoshui. However, Hu Kuan waved his hand and also struck out an invisible qi that collided with Baizun's power. Boom! There was a loud explosion, accompanied by terrifying ripples that spread out. The space was squeezed, distorted, and wrinkled. The two forces engulfed and entangled with each other. Soon, they canceled each other out and dissipated. The experts of the two first-rate forces, who had originally worked together to explore the secret realm, actually fought each other because of Su Xiaoshui. Baizun, if you want to show off, you found the wrong person. My Gray Cloud Hall is not a soft persimmon that you can bully as you wish. The secret realm has yet to open, so I have no intention of fighting with you. However, if you don't give up, my Gray Cloud Hall will play with you. Hu Kuan's eyes were sharp as he looked at Baizun quietly. Baizun was furious when he saw Hu Kuan's gaze. However, he gritted his teeth and waved his hand. He said to the people around him, "Let's go." However, the Blood Sun sect will remember what happened today. After that, the group quickly flew away. Little fellow, don't be afraid. With us here, the Blood Sun sect won't dare to do anything to you. After watching Baizun and the others leave, Hu Kuan flew to Su Xiaoshui's side and said so. I'm not afraid of them, Su Xiaoshui said softly. He did not thank Hu Kuan, but his eyes kept glancing at the place where Su, Yi, and the others had disappeared. Indeed, he was not afraid of the Blood Sun sect. Even if he could not win against several Origin Grandmasters, it would be easy for him to leave in one piece. Hu Kuan could only smile bitterly at this. This Phoenix bloodline was really something else. He didn't know why it was following behind Su, Yi. Send the news back to the hall immediately. If necessary, I'm afraid we'll have to alarm the patriarchs. Hu Kuan finally said and left with the others. He was ready to retreat and wait quietly. Let's go too. Everyone in Nine Star Valley saw everything. Elder Nye stared at Su Xiaoshui's back and said so. Tang Wang did not say anything and left with the others. The commotion this time would definitely cause a huge commotion in the Chaos region. The news here would spread at the fastest speed and reach the various sections. However, none of this mattered to the people who had disappeared. After the strange light pierced through his body, Su Yi felt his body disintegrate, as if it had turned into light. The next moment, what appeared in his consciousness was also a sea of light. However, this sea of light was filled with a dazzling blood-red color. A terrifying bloody energy was drilling into his body, causing his heart to palpitate. When he opened his eyes again, he found himself in another space, just as the people in the outside world had guessed. Is this the secret realm? Su Yi shook his head to dispel the dizziness and muttered to himself. He observed his surroundings and found that this space was very strange. There was no blue sky above his head, but there were patches of dark blood color. Beneath his feet was an endless stretch of brownish-black earth and mountains. Not a single blade of grass grew on the barren land, like a dried-up riverbed of blood. The surroundings were filled with a deathly aura, without any signs of life. The surroundings were the same color, showing an extremely bleak and mottled atmosphere. This place was like hell. For no reason, the angry cries of ghosts rose and fell one after another, causing chills to run down one's spine. What the hell is this place? Su Yi frowned. He realized that the light that had pierced through his body had probably carried the power of space and brought him here. At that time, he had also seen many people disappear together. Only a group of Origin ancestors had successfully left with a small number of people. He did not know exactly how many people had come here like him. This was a completely unfamiliar place, and Su Yi had never experienced it before. It was full of unknowns, causing him to feel very uncertain. Since this is the secret realm, there must be something extraordinary about it. Su Yi pondered for a while. Then his body flew up and landed on a small dirt slope, about 100 feet tall, as he prepared to check out the surroundings. However, just as he stood on the slope, he heard a crisp caw sound, and his legs went soft. He was slightly shocked. His body flew up into the air, and he looked at his feet in surprise. He saw that there was a 6 feet square black hole where he had been standing. The ground he had been standing on had caved in. Surprised, he moved closer to take a look. Around the hole, under the thick brownish-black soil, he saw 2 palm-sized, pitch-black sections in front of him. "This is..." He stretched out his hand and touched the sections lightly, but his hand was smeared with black dust. Small pieces of debris continued to fall from the sections. Suddenly, as if he had thought of something, he struck out with his palm and shook off a large piece of the brownish-black soil. Crack! Another crisp sound could be heard. As the soil was sent flying, a long, stick-like object also fell. Suyi's eyes were sharp and his hands were quick as he caught it. When he took a closer look, he instantly sucked in a breath of cold air. This is the skeleton of a living creature. He scrutinized the long stick in his hand. It was half the length of his height and was very thick. The section was as thick as a wash basin. Holding it with both hands, it was as if he was holding a big tree. In an instant, He could tell that this was the skeleton of a living creature. As far as his eyes could see, the skeleton was completely black. Only the center of the section could be seen mixed with a little bit of white. Obviously, the skeleton had been eroded by external forces. It had completely lost its original color from the inside out, becoming what it was now. Such a big dirt slope. Could it be? He threw away the skeleton in his hand and gathered his chi again. He struck out with his palm, shaking off the thick brownish-black soil on the dirt slope. This time, he was much more careful. He controlled his strength and tried not to destroy the skeleton as a whole. However, it was unavoidable. Crack, crack, sound were heard from time to time. After a long while, He stood under the original dirt slope and looked up. What he saw was really a huge skeleton standing on the spot. The whole body was hollowed out as if it was carved out. Although it was said to be standing on the spot, it was relative to Suyi's body size. In fact, the skeleton was lying on the ground. Such a huge skeleton. What kind of creature is this? He was extremely shocked. The whole skeleton was at least 30 meters tall. It was a huge monster. Looking at the body, there were 4 huge leg bones lying on the side. It seemed to be a kind of beast like a lion or a tiger, but it was impossible to identify. However, one thing was certain. This creature was absolutely terrifying. It was estimated to be at least 20 to 30 meters tall when it stood up, and its body was 50 to 60 meters long. Chapter 1279. In addition, the entire skeleton had been corroded. With Suyi's knowledge, he naturally knew that the bones of ordinary living creatures would not rot for many years, even if they were not baptized by any spiritual chi. For people or savage beasts who were successful in cultivation, their bones were extremely strong. After they died and were buried underground, they would not be immortal for thousands of years, but they would definitely be immortal for thousands of years. However, this skeleton had been completely corroded and had turned completely black. It would break with a touch. Even though Suyi did not touch it, a few huge ribs still fell off. Roughly estimating, it would take at least tens of thousands of years for such an effect to take place. It should be noted that a skeleton that could maintain a certain shape after being completely corroded must have been very powerful when it was alive. From another point of view, the corrosive power of the brownish-black soil on the skeleton was absolutely terrifying. It's a pity. He smacked his lips. At this moment, he was not afraid at all. Instead, he sighed with regret. If this skeleton had not been corroded, it would definitely be a precious treasure for refining equipment. It was a pity that this skeleton could not be used at all. Is there only this skeleton in this mystery realm, or are there many others? Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something and looked around. When he saw another slope not far away, he could not help but rush over again. He shook the soil off the surface layer and revealed another huge skeleton. Apart from the shape of this skeleton being different from the previous ones, the rest of the characteristics were exactly the same. They had all been corroded by the mysterious power. He continued to shake out several more skeletons. They all stood on the ground and were of different sizes. However, compared to his body size, they were all extremely huge. What is this place? Why are there so many powerful living creatures buried here? He frowned and pondered. However, he could not get an answer. Suddenly, as if he had thought of something, he directly blasted the ground with his palm. With a whoosh, the soil splashed, and the bones buried underground were also turned up. A huge pit appeared on the ground, which was filled with bones. Such a scene made Su Yi's scalp tingle. He unconsciously flew up and hovered several feet above the ground. This place was like an ominous land. Every bone here corresponded to a powerful creature. If the entire underground was like this, how many living beings would be buried here? I wonder where the others are. Su Yi's brows were tightly knitted as he muttered. He was certain that he was not the only one who had entered this place. At this moment, his heart was trembling with fear. He really wanted to leave this place. With this thought in mind, Su Yi flew away and advanced in the air. The land that entered his eyes was dark. It was as if every place was the same, filled with an aura of death. There was no blazing sun overhead. Only the dim crimson light of blood shone dimly, plating this space with a layer of strange and indescribable charm. After walking for a long time, he didn't even see half a shadow. Su Yi was at the 9th level of the Origin Void stage, yet he was unable to avoid being illuminated by the light from before and was brought here. Since there were so many people in the Chaos region, they must have all entered this place. However, no one knew where they were. In this way, he didn't know exactly how big this damnable place was. Little Handsome probably didn't come in. Su Yi muttered to himself. At the last moment earlier, he'd sensed a special energy surge out from Little Handsome's body and protect him. Since it was like this, he didn't have to worry too much and only had to take care of his own safety. After flying for a few hours, his eyes were filled with a boundless black land that seemed to have no end. This caused Su Yi to be even more shocked, and he didn't know exactly how many living beings had died here. This was an enormous graveyard, and it couldn't be called a secret realm at all. It was more appropriate to call it a ruin. What's that? During the process of Su Yi flying, he ceaselessly looked around and suddenly saw a strange place. It was a sea of flowers, yet it wasn't colorful. Numerous black-colored flowers bloomed with perfectly straight stems that were half a person tall. The petals were fine like gossamer, and within the black color flowed a gorgeous red color, causing it to seem extremely beautiful. The entire sea of flowers was spread out on a small hill and woven into a carpet of flowers, yet not a single flower or leaf could be seen. Spirit burial flower. He stopped his tracks, and his eyelids twitched in shock. He recognized this type of plant. It was an extremely strange flower species that could not be found in the outside world and only existed in legends. It was said that the spirit burial flower was only born from the nourishment of the blood of all living beings at the extremity of death. There were similar plants in the outside world as well. They were known as shitsi, and their flowers and leaves were never seen. Legend had it that they only existed in places of reincarnation. In particular, He had seen many of them in his previous life. However, the technological civilization of his previous life did not believe in such legends at all. Therefore, shitsi flowers were planted everywhere because they were extremely beautiful. In the Sky Barbarian mainland, the black shitsi flowers were known as spirit burial flowers. Such a large patch of spirit burial flowers must have been nourished by the blood chi and death chi of this place. He muttered to himself with a quivering gaze. Coupled with the boundless skeletons buried in the surroundings, he started to re-evaluate the brownish-black soil beneath him. The soil here was most likely not as simple as it seemed. There's someone. Suddenly, Su Yi's gaze constricted as he caught sight of a figure at the other edge of the sea of spirit burial flowers. Taking a closer look, that person was already dead, and his corpse was sprawled on the ground with his head buried in a bush of spirit burial flowers. Roots as thick as a forearm were crawling on his body, piercing into his organs and absorbing his blood chi. Such a person was definitely a bystander who was swept into this ruin earlier on, or someone from the Nine Factions. However, he died beside this sea of flowers. Spirit burial flowers are a type of spirit medicine that is hard to find, but they are extremely poisonous. Su lamented. That person must have died because he did not know the characteristics of the spirit burial flowers and wanted to pluck them. Instead, he died here and became nourishment. This is a land of death. However, it might be a land of treasures for soul controllers as well. With a thought, Su conjured hand seals with both hands and channeled the heaven-controlling art. Roar! Roar! Suddenly, a series of deep roars sounded in the surroundings, causing the space to tremble slightly and penetrating one's soul. Countless remnant souls gushed out from the surroundings. There was no need for Su to condense them intentionally. All of those remnant souls were in their complete forms and lunged towards him with a ferocious might. Disperse! Su-Yi's heart skipped a beat as he stopped his hand seals hurriedly. At the same time, he severed all connections between his soul energy and those remnant souls. This was the first time he tried to summon remnant souls, and he nearly suffered a backlash. Chapter 1280. However, Su felt that although this thing was dangerous, it also contained opportunities. If used properly, it could have a great effect. With such thoughts in mind, coupled with the fact that there was no one around, he simply opened the mysterious space and brought Feng Qi out. What is this place? Feng Qi's beautiful eyes wandered, and her expression was perverse. After Su explained, Feng Qi immediately understood the current situation. Whether we can get out or not, we'll have to wait and see. If we can improve our strength now, let's improve it a little more. Su said, under this vast sea of flowers, there must be a powerful ancient life form buried here. Su let Feng Qi try to seize the poison in the buried spirit flowers to see if it would be useful. As he expected, Feng Qi took out the soul-nurturing pearl, and it really could absorb the poison of the buried spirit flowers. The flowers withered and turned into dust, and the energy in them was absorbed by the soul-nurturing pearl. This was the terrifying part of the calamity Qi poisoned soul. It was not afraid of any poison and was the best tonic. Su saw that the soul-nurturing pearl had become much bigger. However, after devouring half of the sea of flowers, it could not absorb anymore. These poisons still need to be refined before they can be used by me. Feng Qi pursed her lips and said with a chuckle. Su nodded and carefully used a spirit weapon to dig up some buried spirit flowers. He stored it in a jade box and put it in his interspatial bag. Although this thing was poisonous, it might come in handy in the future to refine medicine. Let's continue. We should be able to meet others. After Su called out, he took Feng Qi and flew together. The seemingly vast and boundless ruins had no end. With their strength, they did not know how to leave. At that time, there were still a large number of Origin Emperors who were pulled into this place. Su felt that it was necessary to find some of them first before thinking of a way. This time, it did not take long before they saw several figures running on the vast black land. They were as fast as the wind and were rushing in their direction. Looking at the faces of these people, it was as if there was a huge and terrifying thing behind them. They were panicking and sweating all over. 5 Yuanjin stage. Su raised his eyebrows and probed their auras clearly. Perhaps it was because they had been running for too long, but they were panting heavily and looked like they were about to run out of energy. Su looked. Feng Qi suddenly cried out in surprise. There was no need for her to remind him, because Su-Yi's gaze had already looked over since a long time ago. He saw a strange living being moving nimbly through the soil and hills on the boundless ground, and it moved about as if it was moving on level ground. It was a creature that looked like a jackal or wolf. Its body was huge, and its height was no less than 50 feet. However, this jackal was missing a hind leg. It didn't look like it was cut off by an external force. Instead, it looked like it had rotted and fallen off. It's actually a dead thing. He was shocked. He couldn't sense any vitality from the jackal. In addition, the body of the jackal and wolf was rotten, flowing with a strange liquid. Its head and abdomen were all rotten, and there was no blood in its flesh. Its internal organs were hanging down and were also festering. The only remaining eye had no pupils. It was completely white and motionless, giving off an aura of death. Its exposed teeth were extremely ghastly, and there was also liquid dripping from it. It looked inexplicably terrifying. The entire body of the jackal and wolf didn't seem to have intelligence. Instead, it was driven to run by some kind of instinct. The targets it was chasing were the 5 Yuan Jun realm martial artists that Su-Yi saw. "Sir, save us." The martial artists quickly discovered Su-Yi and Feng Qi, who were standing in the air in front of them. They immediately cried out as if they had seen their saviors. Martial artists who could fly were either Yuan Jun realm or Yuan Jun realm. They were stronger than all of them combined. "Su-Yi, why don't we save them?" Feng Qi had always been kind and couldn't help but ask. "Stay down here and don't move. I'll go check out the situation." Su-Yi was also filled with doubts and puzzlement. There was actually a dead thing that could run in this place. It was extremely illogical. He brought Feng Qi to a slope below and then flew out on his own. Like a gust of wind, he flew past the 5 Yuan Jun realm martial artists and rushed towards the jackal and wolf. It was as if the jackal and wolf could see Su-Yi rushing towards it. Its huge mouth was wide open, and its ghastly white teeth were like inlaid sharp blades. It opened its mouth and bit down, making a ho-ho sound from its throat. Before it could raise its hand to attack, the corner of Su-Yi's eyes twitched for no reason. His charging posture suddenly came to a halt. He saw that when the jackal's teeth bit down, the space seemed to be distorted. At the same time, it was accompanied by a slight ho-ho sound, as if it was about to burst. This made Su-Yi extremely shocked. This jackal's instinctive attack was actually able to break through the restraints of space. What kind of power was this? As far as he knew, even Yuan Zhong realm martial artists couldn't do this. Seeing that the jackal was about to pounce on him with boundless fear, Su-Yi retreated quickly. The Origin Supreme technique in his body was activated to the extreme, and the Fuyao's 100 transformation steps was also activated. His figure changed as he dodged fiercely. The jackal had lost its intelligence. Su-Yi dodged it in a hurry, and the jackal's body landed on the ground dozens of feet away. Boom! MF Max. New M Chapter RK Section S. T0. The ground shook as if a huge boulder had crashed down. Su-Yi turned around and saw that after the jackal landed, it fell straight down and didn't stand up again. It was as if it was completely dead, and it didn't move at all. Before Su-Yi could launch an attack, the jackal went from extreme movement to extreme stillness. This scene happened so suddenly that he couldn't react in time. What's going on? Su-Yi didn't know what was going on. Out of caution, he raised his hand and launched a palm of light. It hit the jackal's body with a bang, breaking a piece of bone. However, the carcass didn't move at all. At this point, Su-Yi descended from the sky and slowly walked to the jackal's side to observe it. This relic's creature had long lost its vitality. Even its physical body had decayed and declined. There's actually such a strange thing in the world. It's dead, but not destroyed. It's still acting on instinct. Su-Yi was extremely surprised. However, after observing it for a while, he still couldn't find any useful information from the jackal's body. However, his heart was heavy. Such a relic was beyond his understanding. He couldn't believe that such a strange and inexplicable situation had occurred. He could guess that this relic had existed for many, many years. There were at least tens of thousands of them. Otherwise, the bones wouldn't have decayed. However, this jackal had lost its intelligence and was driven by its instincts, showing an inexplicable strangeness. What worried Sue the most was that he really saw the space distort and burst under the jackal's teeth. This was definitely not fake. Its instincts have such power. When it was alive, how powerful was it? Sue found it hard to imagine. It was as if he had fallen into a fog. This relic was full of unknowns. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.